dark hair and tired eyes. The boy touches his face all over as if to confirm if he's really incarnated as this character in his favorite game. Speaking of games, what's your favorite game? In this story, our protagonist's favorite game is one that you would consider a sword and magic fantasy RPG. Right now, he's entered the 42nd round of his favorite game. Like many others, he lives a routine lifestyle. But because of Dungeon Brave, aka Danbury, he can endure even his bleak workplace. It never bores him, no matter how many times he plays it. What makes Dunbury different from a regular RPG is that you can deepen your bonds with the heroines in the series and become their lovers. Now back to the game. The teacher is about to announce the top performers at the entrance exams, as the rest of the students hold their breaths. On the other end of the screen, the protagonist of our story is excited as the teacher finally announces the top 4 people. In 5th place, there's Seal Uranus, whose starting job is a mage. She's followed by Nagisa Sekai, ranked 4th, whose job is a swordsman. In 3rd place, we have Aerith Centria, a cleric. The top ranker in the exam is Leon Praise, whose job is a spellblade. In Danbury, he's also the protagonist of the story and is the hero's descendant. The central story of the game is all about controlling Leon, increasing intimacy with the heroines, and challenging the Demon King. On top of the main story, there are several large and small sub-events in the game. These two are highly popular, but rumor has it that there are a couple of undiscovered sub-events as well. Discovering what these are is one of the true joys of in-depth gameplay elements. What's even more fun in the game is that, depending on the story, the characters' outfits may change. Our avid fan protagonist can't help but admire how beautiful the ladies are. One of the biggest reasons why Danbury sold out so well is that it's considered an adult game. Our protagonist can't help but wear a pleased smile, blushing like crazy, because the players can create a harem in the game. Well, even if it's possible, the harem is not too intense. However, raising intimacy with the heroines is incredibly heart-melting, you know? Of course, many of the players were beyond thrilled upon knowing this, because it balances both the serious aspect of the RPG elements and erotic aspects. Because of the game's success, Danbury is adapted into an anime, a manga, and merchandise that launched several different media. What's more, it even released an all-ages version with all the erotic scenes cut out. Our gamer protagonist, of course, has his collection of all the character figures. Suddenly, his head starts hurting, which he attributes to exhaustion. Maybe he really is too tired today, although he's never experienced this kind of exhaustion before. With that, he decides to sleep it off. Now we have a dark-haired, intimidating character. Tell me, what kind of game do you dislike? As for our protagonist, he really hates Dungeon Brave Soul 2. In this second installment, a certain character who wasn't even named in the first Danbury suddenly becomes the main character here. As seen here, the game's hero, Leon, happily calls out to the dark-haired character from before, whose name is Xenon. Danbury 2 begins after Leon has finally sealed off the Demon King. In the second installment, you play as a character named Xenon. This new character approaches Leon and becomes a troublesome friend. But what's worse is that he also befriends the heroines and forms a party with them. But the situation takes a drastic turn, and before long, the heroines start to distance themselves from Leon. And the reason for that is because Xenon steals the heroines away from him. He does a lot of devious and wretched things to the girls, leaving Leon alone and cornered. Xenon even went low and showed Leon the figure of one of the heroines being violated by the former. Leon can only beg and cry, as the man he considers his friend takes advantage of the heroine before him. Just like that, Leon loses it. Driven to despair, Leon decides to break the seal and unleashes the Demon King, which triggers the end of the world. So, the once heart-stirring tale of love in Danbury quickly becomes a dark and grotesque NTR game in Part 2. This is why our protagonist hates Danbury 2, to the point that he never wants to play it again. But God or some other divine entity must have some different plans for him, because when our protagonist wakes, he finds himself staring up at an intricate ceiling. Well, this is definitely not his room, and now that he notices it, did he have such a slim, muscular build before? This room before him is too luxurious, and that's when he spots the mirror on the wall. He approached it, and to his shock, he couldn't believe the face reflected in the mirror. What the hell is this? This face? Is definitely Xenon. This is the very face he hates the most in Danbury. Xenon Baskerville. He keeps touching his face all over, wondering what's happening as he falls to his knees. And this is the story of our gamer protagonist, who is reincarnated as the villain he hates in his favorite game. How could this be? This face definitely belongs to Xenon Baskerville. So, does this mean he's in the world of Dungeon Brave Soul? He can only hug the mirror, locked in his own gaze, because now he is wearing the face of the character he despises the most. And the protagonist of Danbury 2? His last memory was of him falling asleep last night. Still, the question is, why did he reincarnate as Xenon out of all people? Did he commit some sort of evil deed in his past life to be reborn as a man who preys on women? Like, if he were going to be reborn, he would have liked it if he were Leon instead. His inner monologue got cut short when a lovely but glum-looking maid entered the room. Almost instantly, the maid gets on her knees, fervently apologizing for entering without his permission. But all Xenon could think of was, who is she? The maid continues that the young master usually doesn't wake up when she knocks, so she almost always enters without permission. But now that it's come to this, she could only apologize and ask for forgiveness. She starts undressing herself, saying she'll accept whatever punishment he'll do to her, and turns to expose her back. The mere sight of her undressing leaves Xenon in a panic, while she tells him to punish her as he usually does. Wait, as usual? Now that he's looking at her back, he notices a few scars, probably from lashings. It made him wonder if the real Xenon had been committing violent acts to this poor girl daily. Was he whipping her as punishment? What a trash of a man. Since he's not the real Xenon, if he doesn't do it, he may look suspicious, so he decides to make a few adjustments. He takes a piece of clothing and puts it over her back, saying he won't punish her today. Still, he made it clear to tell her that if things were the usual, he would have given her at least 10 whippings. So again, he orders her to put her clothes back on. Speaking of clothes, all of his clothes are black, no? So yeah, these are definitely the real Xenon's clothes. The maid returns once she has her clothes on and asks what she should do from now on. Xenon turns to her, and now that he has a good look at her face, she's actually quite a pretty face. Who would have thought that beauty like this is part of the mob? For starters, he asks her what year, month, and day it is today. She answers that it's April 5th, 101 in the Slayer calendar. Upon hearing that, it just confirms what he already knew, that he really is in the world of Danbury. And did she say that it's April 5th? It was a pretty memorable day for him back then, because it was the entrance ceremony event at the Royal Academy of Sword and Magic in the royal capital. With a smile, he supposes he'll start attending the academy today. But the maid intervenes and asks if he's not going to do today's morning training. Training? Well, she points out that he does it regularly every morning, which is why she thought he would also do it today. This is the first time he heard about the real Xenon's routine, and it's pretty surprising. He didn't expect the real Xenon to actually be a pretty hardworking guy, because there was no depiction of that in his character and the whole Danbury too. Anyway, the maid asks if he wants to head straight to breakfast if he's not going to do today's training. No, he needs to be in character, so he says he'll start training and asks to be taken to the training grounds. They arrive there shortly, and he immediately notices the state of the grounds. It's pretty roughed up. Is this really Xenon's training grounds? He grabs a sword and starts practicing with it, then puts it back after practicing a few swings. Surprisingly, he gradually got used to the real Xenon's body, and it feels like he's been using it ever since he was born. He doesn't know any martial arts, but he's pretty sure that you can't get far with just talent alone. That's when he notices a few target practices put up in the field. He uses one of his magical skills, Dark Blade, and hits every target right in the middle. He remembers that the real Xenon can master advanced magic called Dark Magic, making him somewhat of a skilled swordsman and magic user. But how did a hardworking guy like him become someone who stole other people's girlfriends? He has no idea how he ended up in the character Xenon's body, but since he's already here, our protagonist decides he'll know everything there is to know about the real Xenon. Wait a minute. The only reason why our protagonist hates Xenon in the first place is because he stole other people's women. But now that he's thinking about it, The current timeline is the day of the Academy's entrance ceremony. So technically, it's basically the opening of the game, which means he hasn't stolen any other woman yet, so he doesn't have any reason to dislike the character Xenon. Now that he's in Xenon's body, he'll make sure to avoid erotic developments like in the second installment, and depending on his position, he can even support Leon in defeating the Demon King or avoid similar danger. This is it. He can practically live a chill and relaxed school life. The maid arrives with another helper, and she brought a basin of water for the young master, while the other girl has towels and a change of clothes. Xenon thanks her for the gesture, but this mere act rendered her frozen. As Xenon wipes the sweat off his body, he finally notices she turned into a statue. Why did she turn into a stone? As it turns out, Xenon has never thanked her for everything she did. Not once. And we also find out that her name is Reviana, as she nearly faints. In our protagonist's mind, just how terrible of a guy was this Xenon that he doesn't even have basic manners. Since he deviated from the original character, our protagonist decided to improvise. He tells Reviana how he has always been grateful for her. It's just that he was too shy to say thank you until now. He expresses his full appreciation to her and is happy for her unending support. Reviana is overwhelmed by the young master's sincerity, but in his mind, our protagonist can't become a villain like Xenon. So if he's going to slip up one day, he may as well act as if he's a changed man while he still can. And from the looks of it, Reviana is eating up his act. The poor maid must have suffered a lot for her to start sobbing just by being thanked for something so simple. She keeps on crying, proclaiming these are tears of joy and that this is the best day of her life. But what he didn't expect was Reviana's sudden change in attitude. She went from being fearful to borderline obsessed with Xenon. She even claims that she's been rewarded. Naturally, our Xenon tells her that she's overreacting, and that this is entirely his fault for not thanking her all those times before. From now on, he's going to rely on her more, which she looks forward to with excitement. Now then, he's off to school, and even the carriage is on brand with his dark aesthetic. Just as he was about to board it, Reviana bade him to take care of himself, all teary-eyed. Her drastic change in attitude only confirms his theory that Reviana must have been subjected to daily violence, which is why his treating her kindly led to her opening herself up completely. He's just going to school. Yet she bids him farewell as if he's off to war or something. Xenon couldn't take it and told the coach driver to just go. Now then, a little quiet time for himself. It's about time he starts thinking about just how far he should follow the scenario that won't cause trouble. Today's entrance ceremony marks the beginning of Danbare 2. Here, it will take Leon 2 years to defeat the Demon King along with the heroines. But as Leon's classmate, our Xenon wonders just to what extent he can get himself involved in the main scenario. He had already made up his mind that he won't cheat or steal someone else's girlfriend. After all, what he loves is pure love. It's been established that Leon is the hero who steals the Demon King and that Xenon's character steals the heroine. From this, the despairing hero resurrects the Demon King, which marks the end of Danbare 2. Along with it is the large-scale magic unleashed by the Demon King that ultimately obliterates the royal capital and everyone else in it. Well, putting it like that, he supposes that it will be enough if Xenon doesn't steal the women. As for him, he'll wait for Leon to defeat the Demon King and totally ignore the game scenario. It's decided. He will not follow the real Xenon's path. It didn't take long for our Xenon to reach the academy grounds. Looking up at the large entry arch, he couldn't believe he was standing before the very place where Dungeon Brave Soul took place. Let's go. Many other students are already inside the academy grounds, and as soon as he enters, he tries to give himself a little pep talk to calm down. It's pretty pathetic for someone like him to act nervously. Besides, he had already walked through these grounds numerous times in the game. That's when he noticed another surprising thing. The other students avoided him like the plague, and they're not even subtle about it. Okay, now he has finally calmed down. Guess it helped that his energy dropped for this. The entrance ceremony will be held in the auditorium soon, and shortly after, a class-specific orientation will follow. Then, after that, the girls will invite Leon for a social gathering where he will meet and get acquainted with the heroines. Just thinking about it leaves him grinning, because finally he can attend the legendary social gathering event. His snickering to himself, though, does poorly for his image because the girls are afraid of him. He tries to reach out and tell them there's nothing to be afraid of, but his looks fail him. He turns to two other girls and smiles at them, only for it to end up looking creepy, and the girls nearly pale out of fear. Yeah, this one is definitely on him and not on them. He walks it off and makes a mental note to not try and laugh in front of other people, with students keeping their distance as he passes by them. The auditorium is no different. He sits by himself because no one wants to sit beside or even near him. Our Xenon can't help but get teary-eyed now that he realizes just how alone he feels. But anyway, he's Xenon Baskerville, the brutal cuckold and villain character in the story. He gaslights himself into thinking he's not lonely, even when he's alone. It took a little while longer before all the students had filled up the auditorium. Once everyone's settled, the head teacher tells them that he'll announce the top students who scored the highest on the entrance exams. Xenon remembers this event as the occasion for unveiling the main heroes. At 5th place, there's Seal Uranus, who stood once her name was called. She's the daughter of a local noble from the frontier, and is also Leon's childhood friend. The two met at the village, and it was Seal who encouraged Leon to enroll at this academy. Her initial job is a mage, which is a rearguard role that specializes in offensive magic. In our protagonist's eyes, she's also a lively and curious character who is full of energy. Next, ranked 4th is Nagisa Sekai. Obviously, from her looks alone, you know that she came from an Eastern country with Japanese-style culture. The daughter of a swordsmanship dojo master and a samurai girl, Nagisa carries a certain darkness in her heart. One of the focal points of her storyline is whether or not she could dispel that darkness. As for her initial job, she's a swordsman, and her weapon of choice is a katana. When it comes to speed, she is much faster than Leon. Ranked 3rd is Aerith Centria. She's of noble blood and has a cardinal for a father, which also explains her object-oriented design. A stunning beauty, she has the best rack out of all the heroines. Her initial job is a cleric, and there's also the background of her parents managing the church. Worst of all, she's the pitiful heroine, who was taken both in body and spirit by Xenon. Well, now that our protagonist's here, he won't let that future happen. Our guy is so far into his own head that he failed to hear the head teacher call his name, Xenon Baskerville, as the Academy's runner-up in 2nd place. He keeps grinning to himself about how all the main heroines are so cute that it makes him want to get involved. So what should he do? This time, the head teacher calls his name again, but angrier this time. That snapped our guy out of his musings, as he finally noticed everyone was staring at him with furrowed brows. Oh no, he missed his chance to stand up when he was called earlier. That's when he hears it. The chatter about his family name. Although the Baskervilles are a noble family, their name is tainted because rumors have it that they're the ones who assassinated the previous king. What's more, they're also synonymous with the criminal guild, and there's even talk about how their family is colluding with a neighboring country. This is bad. He accidentally drew unwanted attention to himself. The head teacher hangs his head in disbelief and starts scolding our guy. Sure, he understands Xenon is dissatisfied with his entrance exam results, and even commends him for his attitude and aiming for the top as a successor of high-ranking nobility. However, the older man reminds him that they're at the Royal Sword and Magic Academy. Here, nobles and commoners are equal, so it doesn't matter if Xenon comes from the Marquis family. The head teacher scolds him and urges him to refrain from showing disrespectful behavior within the academy grounds. But he didn't mean to be disrespectful. He just missed the timing to stand up. Crap, what will he do now? It's okay to stand up, but won't it make him look pathetic? If he embarrasses himself, he may set himself up for becoming the target of bullies. In the end, he remains seated and apologized to the head teacher while in his seat and promised to keep the older man's advice in mind. There was a deafening silence, and that's when he noticed all the heroines were watching him as well. In his mind, he still apologized, even though it sounded arrogant. The head teacher finally spoke, seeing how defiant Xenon Baskerville is and how he showed that he has no intention of changing his attitude. Oh no, he made it worse. But he already apologized, didn't he? He may look evil, but he's a good person. Thankfully, the head teacher let it go. Since today is a celebratory occasion, the older man won't be pushing this. Plus, if he sees no improvement on Xenon's end, then he's not sure what will happen next. Hearing all that just made him wonder what he did before. And here he thought the main issue was because he didn't stand up in time earlier. In his defense, he's still not used to Xenon's name, which is why he failed to react in time. Continuing with the announcement, the head teacher announces the top achiever, the first place in the entrance exam, Leon, their class president. A handsome blonde boy born as the son of a hero, Leon Brave possesses the power to seal the Demon King. He is Danbury's only protagonist, and even though he's born as a commoner, he has excellent grades and is the top student in class. Being the main character, he's loved by the heroines. His initial job is Rune Knight, an occupation that uses both close-range combat and magic. Only 2 of them appeared in the game. Our protagonist also stares at Leon as he stands, admiring the protagonist as he played in Danbury so many times. That is, until Leon stares back and glares at him. Our Xenon finds this strange, because why would Leon glare at him? It's not like he stole the heroines, so he doesn't know why he's being so hated right now. The head teacher tells Leon to give the greetings as the representative to the new students. So Leon obliges and makes his way to the podium. While doing so, Xenon can't help but overthink whether his rebellious attitude earlier disrupted and bothered Leon. Leon begins his speech by saying he came from humble beginnings as a commoner in the countryside. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't even be here. And yet, here he is, standing at the prestigious Royal Sword and Magic Academy. He expressed how honored he is and gave thanks to his parents, as well as Seal's parents, who raised him and acted as guardians to him. Furthermore, he also extends his heartfelt gratitude to the faculty and seniors who will guide him from here on out. Listening to his speech, our Xenon thought Leon would proclaim that he'll be a hero or something like that, which is kind of a letdown. Leon continues his speech, saying the reason he entered the academy is to become stronger and protect the country. The Slayer's Kingdom is a peaceful country without war, but that doesn't mean there is no evil to be hated. With that said, he vows to become stronger and fight against the evil that causes suffering to people, which had Xenon nodding in approval. That is, until Leon adds that the said evil he spoke of is a classmate attending the same school. Xenon didn't expect to hear that, and neither did the others as they started murmuring among themselves. Leon gazes straight at our Xenon, walking onto him. Our guy, on the other hand, has no idea where all this hatred is coming from. He hasn't even done anything. Why is Leon, the protagonist, showing him so much hostility? Is he serious? Our Xenon has a theory. Maybe Danbear 2 is the dumpster fire of a staff member who was devastated by his relationship with women. In Danbear 1, the character of Xenon was just part of the mob who didn't even have his own illustration. Yet, in Danbear 2, he suddenly became the villain protagonist, and was even given a backstory that didn't exist in the first version. It makes our boy wonder if the settings changed as a result of the forceful connection between Danbear 1 and 2. If that's the case, then could it be possible that Leon started directing towards Xenon, even though the latter hasn't done anything yet? If this is the case, then there's no guarantee that Leon will defeat the Demon King as he should, and the story won't even have a happy ending. Xenon considers the possibility that Leon may be defeated by the Demon King, and their world will perish. Anyway, since the announcement of the top-ranked students is over, the head teacher suggests they proceed to their respective classrooms. The students start filling up each classroom, and our Xenon also does the same. He picks a seat and settles down, then proceeds to ponder over the storyline. If the scenario has changed now, then it just means that all the knowledge he has may not be useful. After all, he plans to do nothing, but if he wants to survive, then he needs to exert his utmost effort. For now, he decides on 2 things. He will not move carelessly to hinder Leon's actions, and he will do his best not to disturb Leon so the hero can live a peaceful school life. So far, it's not working, because Leon is constantly glaring at Xenon as if he's trying to pick a fight. That look alone is more like an accusation that Xenon has already done something. In the meantime, all Xenon could do was look away. Well, there's another method and a more reliable one, and it's to join Leon and his party in defeating the Demon King. After all, Xenon is the third strongest character in the game, after Leon and the Demon King. If they defeat the Demon King, then all of them should be able to live a safe school life without the world ending. But that problem is for a different time, because right now he can't even figure out what to do with Leon glaring at him. Staying true to the storyline of Danganronpa 1 is pretty hard, especially since it entails that he has to play a wholesome Xenon right here and now. Class has already started, and our Xenon finally notices the teacher. Even this teacher fell prey to the evil Xenon, but with our protagonist manning his body, he'll make sure that will never happen. But wait a minute, why did Xenon do that in the first place? Enough of that, because we fast forward to the end of the class. The teacher announces that the students are now free to observe club activities as they please. Soon enough, the hallways and corridors of the academy are filled with students, discussing club activities and whatnot, and yes, including Leon. For our Xenon, of course, he's flying solo. Humans' likes and dislikes are determined by the first impression within a few seconds. Because of his dark aura and scary looks, it doesn't help that Xenon's character is also part of the notorious Marquis family, who are known for their tyranny throughout the kingdom. It's not like he has anything better to do with the academy, so with that, our guy goes home so he can think of what to do next. He boards the same lavish and dark carriage, and the moment he steps out of it, Reviena's voice echoes across the halls, welcoming him. He's shocked to see the maid standing by the doorway, but more importantly, how long has she been standing there? Isn't it cold out? She assures her it's not, taking his coat off his hands as she says so. Plus, she also tells him that his father is waiting, so he should come to the office immediately. A shadow passes over Xenon's already dark face, and even Reviena notices that Grandolph Baskerville, Xenon's father, is the ruler of the night in the kingdom. He's the reason why Xenon's character fell off the right path, and based on the information available in the game, you can tell how much of an unparalleled villain he is. He is the leader who controls the underworld and governs the crime guild. He's every bad news there is, and he also has every wicked deed on the list. Organized crime, trafficking, selling slaves, you name it. And worst of all, he's a slayer who manipulates assassins and buries everything in darkness, which kinda makes you wonder if Grandolph Baskerville is a variant of the Demon King himself. As for our guy, no matter how much he wants to avoid getting involved in the real Xenon's family matter, he can't exactly shy away from this since it's his father after all. With that, our Xenon walks over to his old man's office and knocks before entering. As soon as he steps foot in the room, Xenon is attacked by Bloody Chain, rendering him immobile as he falls to the floor. His father looms over him and greets him, since it has been a while since the father and son spent time together. Poor Xenon could barely form a word as he finally came face to face with the Grandolph Baskerville. His old man is also a dark magic user, and this particular technique, Bloody Chain, restrains and immobilizes their target. What's more, it also deals intermittent damage over time, which is a pretty intense way for torture. Grandolph kicks his son, disappointed that his son placed second in the entrance exam. He keeps on kicking him, angry that Xenon couldn't even get the top rank in such a small academy. Is Xenon really the firstborn in the Baskerville family? Poor Xenon could only take his father's beatings, with the older man forcing his ideals on his son. Baskervilles are the ones who dominate the night, which is why they must be the strongest. For that, he will not allow any sort of defeat in their name. He keeps on beating Xenon for sullying the pride of the Baskerville family. Our guy couldn't even open his eyes due to the extreme beating, something his old man also scorns him for. He says Xenon is pretty pathetic and disappointing if he can't even take this kind of beating. With that, Grandolph promises worse things to come if Xenon fails to take the top rank in the next exam. He turns away, saying he'll be away due to work, and orders his son to listen to the orders of the steward and not neglect his training. Xenon manages to walk himself out of his father's study, bruised and bloody. Reviena was right there waiting for him and caught him just as he was about to lose consciousness. The maid cradles him, promising to start treatment right away, as she makes Xenon drink a potion. It was late at night when Xenon finally came to. He checks his body and sees that the damage done by his father is disappearing. Then he sees Reviena slumped over his bedside dozing quietly, and looking at her like this makes him comment on how nice she is. Be that as it may, our Xenon believes that all that kindness is wasted on a depraved bastard who steals other people's lovers. He can't help but wonder why such a wonderful person like her is serving trash like him. He suddenly remembers the beatings he took from his father earlier, and the mere memory of it makes his body relive the pain. For one, he couldn't believe that there's a person who actually exists who can do such harsh and vile things to their own child. There is no doubt about it, the reason why Xenon went off track is because of Grandolph Baskerville. It must be because Xenon experienced a lot of abuse daily, even when he was much younger. Because of the accumulating burdens, it also put a strain on him mentally, until one day he finally snapped. This led to Xenon's character framing Leon and stealing the heroines from him. Factor in the fact that Leon came from the hero's bloodline. He's liked by many and loved by the heroines. Plus, he also has the top ranks in the class, closely followed by Xenon. Then there's Xenon, a guy born into a cursed family and despised by many. It didn't help that he was also abused and grew up without his father's love. This made our Xenon believe that Xenon's character from the game grew envious of Leon. What's more, Leon went on to become a hero by defeating the Demon King, earning the love of many more. The hero Leon has exactly everything Xenon does not possess, which makes our guy believe that the original Xenon must have harbored intense jealousy and hatred towards the main protagonist. As an act of brutal revenge, or maybe even out of spite, Xenon cuckolded Leon and stole all the heroines away from him. Considering all these in mind, our Xenon has decided on a new goal in this world. For now, there's someone who should be defeated before the Demon King, and his solid goal is to take down this person. It's none other than the character Xenon's own father, Grandolph Baskerville. This evil man is an enemy who should not exist. Now that our protagonist is reborn, he intends to live freely and enjoy this world. For that to happen, he will deny both the script of the Danbear production staff and the father of the evil leader. Then there's Reviana, who stirs in her sleep. Suddenly, she sits up straight and sees the young master watching her sleep. She immediately goes for a hug and bursts out crying again. Our Xenon couldn't stop her chest from smushing his face, quickly followed by muffled sounds as the maid clutches him tightly. Reviana checks and sees that Xenon has passed out again, which makes her cry out in panic some more. As the night grew deeper and our Xenon started to feel better, he decided to write everything he remembered about the game. The character's information, storyline, details, and other useful details to confirm if it's the same as what was happening in real time. He made sure to write it in Japanese so that it could be seen without issue. As to what will happen starting now, one of the crucial things he needs to do is obtain important items. After jotting everything down, he files all the documents together and keeps them safe. The next thing he needs to do is figure out how to live in this world. But to begin with, he doesn't even know why he's sent into this world. Be that as it may, he's now Xenon Baskerville, and he will continue to live his life as Xenon. To do that, he must defeat Grandolph first. But another thought occurred to his mind. Is leaving the Baskerville Manor even allowed? If he does this, there's a chance Grandolph will come after him using gangsters and assassins. Plus, if it deviates from the storyline, it will also become impossible to understand Leon's actions. If it were up to Xenon alone, it would be ideal if the Demon King were sealed, the same as in the Danbury storyline. But if Leon loses to the Demon King, then the world is doomed. Xenon sits on his bed that night, thinking that if he has to grow stronger, then he and develop some skills. But first, he needs to check his own. He murmurs status, and a prompt appears that shows all information about his current skills and abilities. In Danbury, there are no levels. All the skills he acquired have proficiency, and it grows stronger by increasing it. Now that he's looking at his stats, he sees that his job is the same as the hero Leon, a magic swordsman. But out of all of that, the things that made him frown were the numbers on his skills. He could only hang his head, though it's a bit of a pain. Because why did proficiency increase in training do? He understands that for swordsmanship and dark magic, but that one? Xenon hopes that he won't have to use it in the future. The maximum value for combat skills is still 0, so at least there's still room for growth. And to become stronger, he needs to learn new skills and increase his proficiency. If he raises specific skills to a certain level, then the path to advance from the initial class to a higher class will open up. Let's see, so he needs to acquire items, and then there are a lot of items he wants to secure too. It's a given that strong weapons and armor can increase ability values. And then there are specific items that allow the user to learn new skills and magic. But wait, there's more. There are also accessories and damage-reducing talismans, so these are the ones he definitely wants to get his hands on. Moving on, there are also items. Now, these can be obtained through 3 options. Purchase them at stores, dive into dungeons to get them yourself, or earn them as rewards during team events. However, there are rare items that can only be bought at auctions, and even that requires a huge sum up front. On the other hand, if you want to obtain items in dungeons, you'd better brace yourself because the items are random. For event items, Xenon sets them aside exclusively for Leon. After all, the hero may need it to defeat the Demon King, and it would be troublesome if Xenon does something stupid and Leon ends up losing to the Demon King. Of course, he remains loyal to his purpose of avoiding the main scenario for the Dambra game, but he also needs to keep out of Leon's way. Reviana knocks on his door and pulls him out of his reverie. She walks in, pushing Xenon's breakfast tray, since she thought the young master may still be feeling unwell. This pleases him because he is starting to get hungry. As he sits at the table, Xenon notices that all the dishes have helpful benefits. The sandwich and soup she brought restore health, while the coffee heals status ailments. From these alone, he can really feel the extent of Reviana's concern and care. He thanks her again for her efforts, but Reviana claims that she's just fulfilling her duties as a maid. So she didn't do anything that warrants Xenon's gratitude, and yet he still insists on thanking her, leaving her beet red as she proceeds to cry. To his shock, he sees blood splattering on the floor. Before he can even ask about it, Reviana is already running at the door, apologizing and saying she'll take the dishes later. He still can't believe that a beautiful girl like Reviana got so excited from hearing him thank her, to the point that she got a nosebleed. That's scary and cute at the same time. It just made him wonder just how much Reviana admired her young master. Well, when he thinks about it, Xenon's character has a lot of allies, so there was no need to go loco and steal someone else's girlfriend. After having breakfast, our Xenon got ready and left the room. He sees Zaius, the head butler of the Baskervilles, already waiting for him at the end of the hall. He's also in charge of overseeing the management of the whole estate. Zaius is worried about the young master and decides to check on him, seeing how Xenon didn't practice in the garden this morning. In answer, Xenon asks if the older man would snitch on him to his father for slacking off. Zaius answers that Xenon's father only hopes to see his son grow into a strong individual worthy of the Baskerville family. Furthermore, Grandolph Baskerville also has high expectations for Xenon, which is why Zaius hopes the young master will not betray those expectations. With that, the older man bows to Xenon. The latter walks past him and assures the butler that he shouldn't worry, because he will meet his father's expectations. Zaius stands and asks if Xenon has any plans to get stronger. Before he leaves, Xenon says that there are other ways to become stronger apart from practicing swinging swords. He vows to become strong enough to surprise his father in his own way, and with that, he's off to school. A week has passed since then, and everything pretty much remains the same. Xenon remains alone as ever, and his classmates still talk about him, seeing how menacing his face is. On the other hand, Leon is pretty consistent in showing hostility towards him, but it doesn't matter now. When it comes to studying in middle school, it's no problem for our protagonist. Using magic also seems to be ingrained in his body, so it comes to him pretty easily. But other than that, the one class he's looking forward to the most is almost upon them. Today, the teacher announces that their lesson will be about dungeon exploration and instructs the students to form a party before they head out. Dungeons are layers of monsters that exist all over the world of Danvir. Inside, monsters and treasures naturally occur, and it's a given that a dungeon houses a mountain of treasures that produces resources infinitely. The only downside of a dungeon is that if they're left unattended, it's like a ticking time bomb that will endlessly spew out monsters. Now, It's a known fact that the academy was also established with the goal of exterminating the monsters that dwell in the dungeons. Basically, the academy's goal is to develop human resources to protect the lives of the people. Xenon reads the name of the dungeon within the academy, the Playground of Sages. With everyone gathered at the dungeon's entrance, the teacher spots certain loners in the class, aka Xenon to be precise. So he has to air out that he's perfectly fine on his own. Plus, it's not like he needs anyone else. He's fine on his own doing the tutorial dungeon. Even their teacher can't really say much to that. But thankfully, another classmate steps up and says she's fine on her own. Nagisa Sakai. Our protagonist remembers her character as distressful at first, refusing to interact with anyone. But once she was together with Leon, she managed to open her heart up, which is crucial for her future. The teacher tells them that exploring the dungeon solo is pretty dangerous, especially if it's their first time doing so. With that said, she asks if it's okay for Nagisa and Xenon to form a duo, but the two of them won't budge and insist on going solo. For our Xenon, it's because he doesn't want to mess up Leon's storyline, so he's bent on keeping minimal contact with Nagisa, one of the main heroines. The teacher can only release an exasperated sigh. But she did try her best to set them up for the better. No? Honestly speaking, she tells them that there aren't any particularly dangerous monsters in the dungeon. But if anything happens inside, then it's their own responsibility. And in the unlikely event that they may lose their life inside, she tells them that the academy will not take responsibility. With that said, she urges everyone not to act brashly. Now that she has said everything that needs to be said, the teacher instructs them to start exploring in order. The next party will enter the dungeon 10 minutes after the previous party enters. She also urges them to make sure they bring back the collected items and drop materials from the monsters they will find. The management guild doesn't buy any of the items, but those will be reflected in their grades. With that, some of the students proclaim that they'll go first, but others are against it, insisting their group should go ahead. Soon enough, everybody is bickering with everybody, unable to decide on which order they should go with. Looking at them like this, our Xenon can only sigh, since everyone's eager to get into the dungeon. All this bickering could have been avoided if only the teacher had decided on the order. As it turns out, he's not the only one pissed at all the bickering. Nagisa looks at their classmates in disdain, frowning since they all act as if they're going on an outing, which is pretty reckless. Huh? Our Xenon is more surprised that she's talking to him. It's the first time a classmate has spoken to him, after all. Nagisa points out that everyone can't help it since Xenon's face spells out trouble. And there's also the fact that they're scared of him. They can't help it. He couldn't be more sorry for that. But other than that, he's curious what Nagisa is up to. She simply answers that, out of all of them, he's the only one who looks like he had nothing to do. With that, she marches ahead and says to Xenon that she wants him to tell everyone that if they haven't decided the order yet, then she'll take the lead. Xenon couldn't even do anything since she continued to walk ahead without looking back. My, this girl has a surprisingly good personality. As she walks past her classmates, the others start calling her out, saying it's not fair. But even all their complaints fall on her deaf ears. With her already inside, the others are still going on about how unfair she was, so this time Xenon steps in and lets them have it. He starts shouting at his classmates, scolding them because they couldn't even decide on anything, and it's wasting everyone's precious time. He doesn't care if it's rock, paper, scissors, or lottery, so they should hurry the hell up and make up their minds since the sun is already setting. His sudden outburst got them all to shut up, and in the end, they quietly decided the order through rock, paper, scissors. The order of entry went by smoothly, thanks to his scolding. The teacher approaches Xenon, commending him for his surprising leadership skills. She didn't expect it at all coming from him, which is why she has a newfound respect for him. In answer, he tells her that she doesn't need to change her opinion of him, and she doesn't even know anything about him, right? Well, that's true as much as it embarrasses her to admit it, but it seems like she also acted the same as Xenon's classmates. Everybody else keeps their distance from him because of his looks and family background, and as a teacher, she should have an objective viewpoint, and it's something she must reflect on. But other than that, she's worried if he's okay with being the last one to enter the dungeon. since it looks like Xenon also didn't take part in the rock, paper, scissors that the others did. This is because he wants to confirm something. All items and treasures obtained in the dungeon are subject to a certain tax, right? He wants to know if there's a tax on the items found in this dungeon too. The teacher reminds him that this is just part of their lesson, and since the dungeon is under the Academy's management, no taxes will be imposed. However, all of the items he will obtain here are worth only a pittance if they're sold. She thinks it's also important to add that there are almost no casualties in this dungeon because there are no strong monsters here. With that, he tells her that he'll do his best to search for items. He starts walking towards the dungeon entrance, with the teacher telling him that he should turn back if it ever becomes dangerous for him. Xenon just waves her off, but in his mind, he thinks she's a good guy and reliable teacher because she's still worried over a guy like him. Just by looking at her, he can't believe she's the same woman who gets locked up in a basement and disciplined harshly like a dog by Xenon's character in the game. As our protagonist, he will never allow a thing like that of Danbare 2 to happen here. With that, he stands at the entrance, excited to conquer this dungeon. A couple of slimes bounce along the dark corridor when Xenon bursts through, using his shadow edge, instantly cutting the little monsters in half. Now lifeless, he stares at the creatures' bodies until they start to reveal their core. Xenon picks up the item drop. It's the slime core. Looking at it like this, he confirms that this real-life scenario is just the same as how it was back in the game. Since this is a tutorial, there are no mobs and traps, which makes it pretty easy to solo. He continues ahead and chances upon floating balls. These creatures dive straight to Xenon, but he cuts them down easily, and just like the slimes from earlier, he picks up the item drops. All in all, it's no big deal. It's like a warm-up. If he has any concerns, it would be that monster located on the bottom floor. The further he goes into the dungeon, the more he encounters slimes in greater numbers. This time, the slimes are moving in unison, probably so they could attack Xenon better. But it doesn't matter for our Xenon because he knows small fries will always be small fries. He faces them head-on, thrilled to take down all these slimes, because they're nothing but punching bags. It didn't take long for Xenon to wipe out that slime colony. So he continues walking until he reaches the corridor that leads to the lower levels. He makes his way down, and he's barely entered the lower portion when he sees 3 of his classmates who were injured. One of them is in far worse shape compared to the 2 and overhears them talking. The other guy feels like crap for losing against such a small fry, but he tries not to think too much about it. It's his first dungeon exploration after all. Meanwhile, our Xenon is killing it, leaving a trail of dead bodies in his wake while he casually walks along the dark corridors. He descends into the deeper levels until he's finally on the 3rd floor of the lower levels. Now that he remembers it, only Seal, Leon, and Nagisa were able to get to the deepest level of the dungeon. On his right, he sees more of his classmates, and many more are injured this time around. He already expected this much, that the number of casualties would increase the deeper they go. That's when he notices 2 of his classmates doing something out of the box. A girl is healing another boy whose head is resting on her lap. It's an A class with a cheat skill, but he decides to look away. Xenon knows that if you team up with brainless idiots, they're bound to drag you down sooner rather than later. He hears a voice telling everybody to line up so she can heal them. It's Aerith. The blonde beauty freely heals everyone. And what's even more impressive is that no matter how many people she heals, her mana never runs out, as expected of Aerith's Intria, the sage. Her classmates continue to thank her, while Xenon stands dumbfounded in his spot. He immediately slaps the hell out of his face, trying not to get too enthralled with Aerith. If he had stared any longer, he's pretty sure he would have fallen for her, and we can't have that. It would be a bad ending for the Demon King's resurrection if he suddenly became the cuckold protagonist. So to avoid falling into temptation, Xenon walks away. However, Aerith already saw him. She approaches him and calls out to Xenon. The latter turns, greeting the Academy's 3rd place, but Aerith looks up to him with an almost smoldering gaze. The other students start to get nervous at the sudden face-off, but there's no malice between the 2. For Aerith, she just wants to heal Xenon, but upon checking his body, it looks like he doesn't need it. Our Xenon points out that this is just a tutorial dungeon and asks her what she has been doing all this time. She's been healing everyone, that's what. After all, she's someone who can't leave an injured person alone. Xenon looks away, commenting on how merciful she is. But shouldn't she also keep moving forward? Aerith smiles and happily tells him that she has permission from her friends. If anything, she believes it more important for someone here to move forward a step at a time for the party to reach their goal. Well, Xenon can't say much about them being buddy-buddy and all that. As for Aerith, he knows she's the very embodiment of dedication and self-sacrifice, and she would even willingly sacrifice herself just for anyone. In Danbear, there were moments when she risked her life to try and save people who were in trouble. Sure, her saintly behavior is admirable, but for our protagonist, it only made him anxious in the game. She's a good girl all in all, but he can't help but feel a little annoyed because of her selflessness. He can't understand people who would sacrifice themselves to help others and would even willingly give up their own happiness for other people. It's absurd. Our Xenon continues on his solo exploration, turning his back against Aerith without another word. It's not his place to tell her off. He'll just leave all that scolding for the hero. Aerith calls out to him and asks if there's a problem, but Xenon doesn't answer directly. Instead, he just tells her that he's going ahead and that she should continue helping others, but only to do it in moderation. As he heads to a dark tunnel, Xenon reminds himself that he's not the one who will save Aerith, the wounded saint. It's Leon. The hero should be the one to free Aerith from the cycle of self-sacrifice, so it's not his call to make. Just like the real villain Xenon, he'll leave with style. He descends a long, winding tunnel so deep that light barely reaches the deepest parts, until finally he's on the 4th floor. No sooner had he set foot on the level than a group of rabid rabbits with horns came running to attack him. But alas, they were no match for our Xenon, who cuts them all down with ease. Still, he finds none of his classmates in the area, which goes to show that none of them got very far. So Leon, Seal, and Nagisa have most likely reached the lowest floor by now. He bags the item drops and remembers that if he's following the storyline, then Leon should have probably defeated that monster by now. Meanwhile, our Leon is stuck with these measly flying orbs as his opponents. He's obviously unsatisfied with this, but is this it? Does this wrap up his first dungeon experience? Just then, a cry of pain pierces through the cave, making Xenon turn in the direction of the voice. It's coming from that cavern. He hears more voices, fronting at what the others just did and telling somebody else to get back. Xenon dashes in their direction, and by the sound of their voice, he wonders how bad those people must be struggling to make that sound. As Xenon emerges from the corridor, he sees 2 of his classmates and spots the thing that's keeping both classmates preoccupied. It's a gargoyle. But wait, shouldn't that monster be on the lowest floor? The creature attacks and slashes the girl named Alicia, angering the boy, even though he's badly beaten as he is. The gargoyle snickers in reply, bent on killing the humans and even almost obsessed with doing it. Xenon is confused because this monster isn't supposed to be here. They're supposed to fight it on the lowest floor. In the game's storyline, Leon, Seal, and Nagisa fight together, and Leon awakens the powers of the hero's blood. That alone is supposed to drive the gargoyle back. Oh no, he forgot about it. But the gargoyle actually ran away somewhere during the fight. This incident was briefly mentioned in the game in how the monster killed several of their classmates while fleeing. Because of what happened, Leon couldn't help but blame himself for the death of his classmate. This made him reflect deeply on his weakness, inspiring him to train harder, which is the classic growth flag. Looking at these 2 who are being hounded by the gargoyle, Xenon finally understands that the classmates who died in the game are these 2. They're nothing but mob characters who were compelled to die, but they should have their own lives too, right? Seeing the boy struggle in front of him, Xenon remembers the pain of Leon and Danbear. For the hero Leon's growth, this boy must have his life taken. Xenon looks away, murmuring to himself that helping them would be bad, right? For Leon to hate the demon race and grow as a hero, this classmate of his needs to die. Our Xenon contemplates what's happening before his eyes, because if he decides to step up here, the future where Leon defeats the Demon King and saves the world might change. With that, he sheathes his sword and turns away. He chooses to ignore what's happening before his eyes and can only hope these 2 won't take it the wrong way. Just then, the gargoyle finally disarms his classmate, leaving them both exposed and vulnerable. As our Xenon continues to walk away, he stops in his tracks when he hears them trying to save each other, even though it's futile. The two huddle together, seeing how they have no choice but to accept death, when suddenly, something strikes the gargoyle, knocking it off balance. These two can't believe it, as someone stands between them and the monster. Our Xenon fights the gargoyle head-on, because he couldn't help it. In the end, being the villain doesn't suit him after all. Xenon's classmate shouts from behind, "Aren't you Baskerville?" But our protagonist shushes him instead. He justifies this intervention by saying a hero who can't grow stronger just because of a rewritten scenario isn't a true hero. And if he abandons someone in a situation like this, then that would only mean that he really has become a piece of trash. With that said, our Xenon proclaims that he refuses to let his classmates die just for the sake of the scenario. Obviously, the gargoyle is not too happy with this intervention, and he's pissed at Xenon for it, promising the human that he won't get away with it. That threat just makes Xenon laugh as he jumps straight into the fray, claiming that a mere tutorial boss like him has no right to talk like that. Plus, he's a great villain whom the protagonist of Danburii can't even beat. Did this gargoyle, a mob monster, really think he stands a chance against Xenon? The gargoyle unfurls its wings and lets out a roar, kicking Xenon, but only to end up missing him. Xenon attacks the monster's limb, but it has no effect. He's pretty tough. The gargoyle cackles again, shouting that it's all useless. Xenon's a little annoyed that his physical attacks don't work, but if memory serves him right, this gargoyle has the same level of strength as the monster you encounter mid-game. With the rusty sword as the starting equipment, he can't land a single blow on the monster. So this time, he tries something different. He uses dark magic and hurls Shadow Edge at the gargoyle. Now that attack definitely hurt the monster. He knows it. The gargoyle has high physical stats, but low magic resistance. So in this case, it's pretty obvious that our Xenon's only option is to attack it with magic. The only question is, how many dozen magic attacks does he need to execute to take it down? The gargoyle flies away, and Xenon notices a piece of shrapnel forming on the monster's forearms. The gargoyle fires all of these in Xenon's direction, which the latter dodges. Standing before this humongous monster, even our Xenon knows that this particular enemy takes a whole party to defeat. Unfortunately for him, he's a solo player, so despite facing this danger, Xenon pushes on. This time, he plans to finish it all with one critical hit. The gargoyle swings its arms to try and swat him, but Xenon uses that as leverage and starts climbing the length of the monster's arm. He charges straight at the gargoyle's head, because he knows where its weakness is. Xenon makes his way up to the monster's chest and stabs it at the junction of its neck and chin, as the gargoyle lets out a roar of pain. You see, all enemy characters in Danbear have a set weak point, so when they're attacked there, it will be treated as a critical hit. In the case of the gargoyle, this enemy's weak spot is just right under its chin. Xenon asks the monster how it feels to be killed by a lesser opponent, knowing this gargoyle went on a killing spree of their classmates when he was defeated by the hero. This must be pretty humiliating even for an event boss, right? The gargoyle tries to stay in character and is about to repeat its usual mantra of kill all humans, but it doesn't get to do that. Xenon unleashes his Hellflare, the attack piercing through the gargoyle's skull, as the monster is finally subjugated. Xenon sheathes his sword and tells the dying monster that the strongest starting job in the game is the magic swordsman, which is him and Leon. The gargoyle finally collapses on the floor, as our protagonists say that there's no way he would lose to a weak starting boss like this. As the monster's body fades to dust, it leaves the usual item drop, but this one is way bigger than the others. Xenon picks it up, realizing that this is the first time he has fought properly ever since he came to this world. This item in his hand is proof that he won. Still, he doesn't know how defeating the event monster would affect the story, but for now he'll just relish in the fact that he was able to save a life that was supposed to die in the game story. After picking the item drops, Xenon turns his attention to his injured classmates. He sees the guy giving the girl a recovery potion and asks if they're okay. The latter smiles and tells him they're okay, adding that Xenon saved them big time. Xenon notices the multiple recovery potions on the floor, which makes him think that these guys are running low on healing potions. He hands 2 of his potions to his classmates, but the latter are reluctant to accept them since they don't have anything on him. Xenon says it's fine since the potions are cheap anyway. The poor guy cries at this unexpected act of kindness before letting their unconscious classmate drink the potion. Xenon walks away upon seeing the girl's condition improve. The guy bows his head low on the floor, thanking Xenon for saving their necks. Well, it's no biggie for our hero, they're his classmates after all. But the boy wouldn't shut up because he's not only thanking him for the potion, but also for taking down that monster. The poor guy never even thought a strong monster like that would appear in the dungeon, and it's not like he let his guard down either. Xenon tells him that thing was an irregular, and even if they lost, it wouldn't mean a thing. But still, the guy feels so useless. It's the leader's fault, his fault that their friend died. If only he had been stronger, then everyone wouldn't have had to face such a cruel event. He keeps bashing his fist into the ground out of frustration. Seeing him this way, it makes Xenon think that this guy has a strong sense of responsibility. He's too good for a mob with the way he feels responsible for his teammate's injury. Moved by such intense emotions, Xenon suggests to the other that if he feels responsible, then it's all the more reason to get stronger. He needs to be strong enough so that he can protect his friends next time. The other guy looks up with tears in his eyes and wipes them away. Xenon is right. He just needs to be stronger, just like Xenon. Our Xenon replies that the other doesn't need to see him as an example. They'll be spending a long while at the academy, so doing their best is just fine, right? The guy apologizes and thanks Xenon again for everything he did. But at this point, our protagonist is starting to get a little annoyed at the former. But his classmate explains that he owes Xenon a proper apology, given how he misunderstood our hero. Like most, if not all of the characters so far, the boy thought Xenon was a much worse individual with his scary face and being a member of the notorious Baskervilles. Xenon takes it all in, well aware of his looks and his family's reputation. But what he doesn't expect is what his classmate says to him next, that he, Xenon Baskerville, turned out to be a good guy. Xenon could have just turned his back and ditched them earlier, yet he went out of his way by saving them and endangering himself. Plus, he even shared some of his potions with them, even if he and practically the whole class ignored him in the classroom. This guy gives a 90-degree bow and apologizes to Xenon with sincerity. Such a heartfelt expression flusters our protagonist. But since he has a role to play, he just cleared his throat in response. Now that he thinks about it, he has always been a loner, and this is the first time a classmate has properly talked to him. After being in solitude for too long, even our protagonist has no idea what to say. Needless to say, he's embarrassed. Xenon takes one of the item drops from his pocket and gives it to his classmate. He tells the other guy that he shouldn't worry too much, because even Xenon himself is aware of how scary his face is, and that the Baskervilles are evil. Besides the item drops, Xenon also hands the guy a monster-repelling magic incense before he goes ahead. This one only works for repelling weak monsters, though. Still, he thinks the guy and their other classmates should be fine fighting against monsters of that caliber. His classmate couldn't be more grateful for everything Xenon did, vowing to repay this favor someday. For the first time, our hero flashes a genuine smile towards someone besides Ravienna, saying the latter can just repay him when he succeeds. Xenon continues deeper into the dungeon and encounters a pack of dark wolves. But before the monsters could even attack him, our hero had already taken them down. Compared to the gargoyle, these monsters are easier small fries. As he progressed deeper, there was a gradual change in the architecture of the place, and from rocky caverns, the surrounding area is now built of polished bricks. This is the lowest floor, aka the playground of the wise. As soon as Xenon enters this level, he notices that there are other people already there. Leon is surprised to see him there, and on both sides are Nagisa and Seal. Our hero asks if they were okay, but he already expected this much from the descendant of the hero. Leon asks him in return how he knew they were in danger, but it suddenly clicked. Was it all Xenon's doing? Xenon just shrugs, having absolutely no idea what Leon is angry about. What he knows is that a powerful monster appeared earlier, and he just thought Leon and the others encountered it too. Wait a minute, so does this mean that Xenon was attacked by the monster too? Leon finds it unbelievable that Xenon managed to escape unharmed. The latter explains that even if he's unharmed, the monster has injured their other classmates. Leon's knees buckle upon hearing that. He feels shame, regret, and disappointment in himself all at once and starts crying. If only he hadn't let the monster slip away. Seal cries along with him, consoling him that it's not his fault. If Leon wasn't with them, then she and Nagisa would have been killed. It was Leon who protected them against the monster. But this was not enough for the hero Leon, as he blames himself even further. Their classmates would have never been hurt, and he only defeated the monster properly then and there. With this, Leon slams himself with disdain. A hero's descendant? Who's he kidding? He's nothing but a powerless man. Xenon can only watch him as Leon continues to lament his shortcomings. But throughout this whole drama, Nagisa is the only one unmoved by all of this, while Xenon can sigh. In the original scenario, the enemy that slipped away from Leon ended up killing a classmate of theirs. From there, Leon experiences a dramatic growth due to intense regret. But given how Xenon made a couple of changes, he wonders if they can still expect the same growth as the one in the original scenario. Leon continues to cry, punching the ground until his fist bleeds out of frustration because of his powerlessness. Xenon watches wordlessly while Seal and Nagisa comfort him. Xenon turns away, wondering how the hero will grow from here. Well, there's no point in thinking of the future. All they can do for now is face what's in front of them. Well, it's about time our Xenon returned to his dungeon exploration. Before he resumed, he made sure to tell the trio to take care on the way back. But as he started to walk away, Leon called out to him. Now what? But the hero looks embarrassed as hell to say what's on his mind. Eager to return to his own adventure, Xenon tells him to hurry it up. Much to his surprise, the hero actually thanks him. And what's even more surprising is that Leon actually bowed his head to him, appreciative of how Xenon gave his potions to our classmate and just overall covered all of Leon's shortcomings. Is this really happening? Leon, who has shown him nothing but hostility, is actually thanking him? Well, what do you know? Even the protagonist knows when to act right. Still, Leon tells him that he shouldn't get the wrong idea. The hero explicitly told our hero that he won't ever forgive a villain like him, which is why he believes our Xenon will get what he deserves in due time. With that, Leon walks away, quickly followed by Seal. As for our Xenon, he could only scratch his head and go the opposite way, at least until he heard Nagisa call him. She asks him directly if he was the one who took down the gargoyle. So what if it was him? What about it? She knew it. Nagisa noticed how the air around Xenon is different from the rest. The samurai girl takes pride in how her instincts are spot on. Since her curiosity is satisfied, she too follows Leon. But not before telling Xenon how she hopes to fight him one day. After all, battling the strong is the best learning experience. Just like that, Xenon now has more on his plate. This will be a tough road ahead. Anyway, he resumes his dungeon adventure and finds a narrow room with a throne at the end. He doesn't really care for the lavish seat, but more for the chest that sits right on the cushion. He opens it to reveal a couple of medals. And with that, he raises one of them high in the air. Dungeon cleared. Finally, he got his hands on the Sage's Playground medal. He remembered back when he first played Danbear how he cried, thinking it was over after he beat the gargoyle, and forgot the medal, which meant no clear. Well, he guesses that it must be a common tale among dungeon players. Now that he remembers it, did Leon and the others take their medals? Or maybe they forgot. If they did, that would be a shame on their part. Anyway, Xenon starts feeling the bricks on the walls and finds one that's different from the rest. He pushes it to reveal a secret room filled with riches called the Room of Wealth. His gloomy face instantly lit up, because for all he knows, it shouldn't appear yet until the second clear. He starts diving into the pile of gold coins, looking for something. Just then, his hand grabbed something, so he started pulling it out to reveal a chest. And inside, it was a magic bag. You see, the Room of Wealth is where you store gold and magic items from previous clears. With the help of the magic bag, this particular item lets you carry unlimited items. And between you and me, it's the real treasure here. Our Xenon starts jumping for you. Because who wouldn't? All this money and it's all his. Suddenly, he's a billionaire. Xenon starts filling the bag with gold coins, weapons, and other rare items. Our boy was not leaving that room. Not until he crammed everything into the magic bag. And while he was busy hauling, he suddenly felt something dark course through his veins, as if he was being called. He turns to see a giant dark blade, stuck right on top of the gold pile behind him. He can't believe it. It's the demon sword Amatasaha Bakarimaru. There's no way he wouldn't know its curved shaft and red veins that pulse like blood vessels. Our protagonist crafted this weapon during gameplay himself. He commissioned it from a blacksmith and collected the materials needed to create this masterpiece. He can't believe his cherished blade made it into this world. And it's even more impressive, given how this weapon surpasses the ultimate holy sword, X-Brave, from the late game. Xenon grabs and raises his cherished weapon high in the air, remembering how it deals massive damage even in hard mode as long as your skills are maxed. But wait a minute. If this sword, which he personally designed and commissioned, is here, then does that mean all the items are based on his game data? Are these carryover items based on his dungeon break data? But the biggest question of all of this is, who set all of this up? If that's the case, it means our protagonist didn't just stumble into this world and possess Xenon by accident. Was he reborn here out of someone's will? But whose will is it? And why? There are already a lot of questions flooding his mind. But he can't help it. Why was he even reborn as Xenon in Danbare 2, and not as Leon in Danbare 1? Surely this reincarnation isn't done by chance. There has to be a meaning behind it. What is the purpose of sending him here? And how did they even bring his data into this world? With that, our protagonist exited the dungeon with a lot of questions and no answers. As soon as he emerged, his classmates were shocked. But Xenon went straight to the teacher and tossed her the medal. Everybody looked on curiously, as their teacher announced that she was acknowledging Xenon's conquest of the Sage's playground. Wait, what? Conquest recognized? Welp, it looks like Leon and the others didn't even notice it, as the other students exchanged glances, looking to see if they also missed that part. So it wasn't just a drill? With this, the teacher gives Xenon the go signal to explore other dungeons. He may have survived this encounter with the gargoyle, but the teacher still reminds him to take extra care when exploring other dungeons. Just like that, classes for that day ended. As Xenon makes his way home, he can't help but think that he seriously needs to start looking for allies. After all, going solo in dungeon exploration has its limits. At least he got a lot of pretty good items in the Room of Wealth, but the only downside is that he can't equip most of them yet. He can't use most of those if he can't raise his skill level. For a bit, he even doubted himself for a second, thinking whether he should have gotten weaker weapons instead. But nah, that's not the way to do it. Our Xenon knows he needs to level up his skills, since going solo on high-level dungeons can only go so far. If he got afflicted or hit with poison or a curse, he most definitely needs a healer. Because without a healer, for paralysis or petrification, he's as good as dead. Even he knows deep down that allies are essential. But what can he do? Our mans is practically alone. He needs to find an ally who is as skilled as Leon, but it's nearly impossible. His only options are either to hire a mercenary or get a slave. In Danbare, there's a mercenary sub-heroine you can hire for gold. But of course, hiring them comes with their own downsides. They're unreliable and bail when things get tough. And they even steal your items. Then there are slaves. They can be bought at an auction in the slaver's kingdom, since slavery is legal. Slaves are bound to their owners by enslavement magic, forcing them into eternal loyalty. He may be Xenon now, but deep inside, he's still a decent person, which is why he's really on the fence about buying slaves. But with his life on the line, he can't really be picky-canny. After all, if he gets killed here, he doubts there's a continue button after. Well, that settles it then. He needs to survive. And for that, loyal subordinates are essential even if they're slaves. Desperate times call for desperate measures, as the saying goes. Just like that, he finds himself in front of multiple giant tents huddled together, with noblemen entering the facilities. Xenon is welcomed by a stout man in a tall hat, bowing his head in front of the young master of the Baskerville house. The older man even ushers our guide to the front row, which Xenon thanks him for casually. So here's the thing. To buy and sell slaves, this means that our protagonist must also join the ranks of that wretched crew. First and foremost, he needs loyal subordinates to help him confront his father, the kingpin of the underworld. With that, the booming voice of the auctioneer echoes across the hall as they welcome the esteemed gentlemen and elegant ladies in the crowd for joining them in the grand spectacle of the slave auction. The first set of slaves, which consisted of a child, a buff man, and a beautiful woman, were showcased in front of them. The people in the crowd were quick to shout their bidding, ranging from 100,000 to 800,000. Xenon cringed as he saw both the slaves and how this supposed nobility acted upon seeing them. This went on for a while, with many of the royals clamoring to get their hands on the slaves presented to them. So far, they've finished auctioning Lot 5, and up next, a young boy with blonde hair and stunning blue eyes was next. His starting bid was 100,000, and from there, the crowd erupted with their own bids. Meanwhile, our Xenon looks away. Truthfully speaking, he could easily snag a couple of slaves he wants, since his pockets are pretty much overflowing with the gold coins he got from the Room of Wealth. Right now, he can only hope he can get his hands on an impressive slave with the right firepower to boot. He rummages in his pocket for a curious-looking monocle and puts it over his right eye. This thing right here is called the God Eye. Originally, it's meant to check out a monster's abilities, but given the situation, he uses it to assess the slave's skills and proficiency instead. The God Eye's power lets you see an opponent's skill and their proficiency, which is pretty handy when it comes to battles. Right now, the slaves presented to them are lacking combat skills, though they do have charm skills. But who uses charm skills anyway? Sure, skills can be acquired over time, but the growth rate of innate skills is on a whole nother level. Based on tonight's lot, it looks like the talent he's looking for is not among the slaves here. Xenon gets up from his seat and starts to make his way to the exit. He's already deep in thought about his next move, because it looks like he needs a more creative approach for this search. Just then, the auctioneer announces they're finally showing off the last slave of the day. But before the big reveal, he builds up the tension, introducing this slave as someone who hails from one of the rarest tribes. She's also imported from the northern demi-human continent. The crowd is already excited, but that very description just made our guide turn to look at the slave presented to them. Before them stood a dainty-looking girl, but make no mistake, she's actually a white-haired goblin, and it's none other than Urza, the white ogre. Just what the hell is she doing here? There's no mistaking it, that snow-white hair and skin, with that golden eye and a crimson horn on her head, are irrefutable proof that she comes from the demon race known as the Oni tribe. But this is impossible because Urza is not even a character from Dronzer. Our hero recalls that she appears in a game called Warlord of the Holy Seas, which was developed by the same guys who made Dronzer. Anyway, the game she's from is a war simulation game set on a tropical island paradise, where allies gather and aim for victory in a battle against rival nations. Urza is supposed to be one of those ally characters, which begs the why is she here in Dronzer? This is crazy. It's like the two worlds collided and had a crossover. The games have gone haywire. While the nobles are busy bidding to get their hands on Urza, here's our Xenon, recalling information about the Oni tribe. You see, the Oni tribe is a rare breed. They age slowly, and they stay youthful forever. On top of that, they also possess incredible physical prowess. From the looks of it, Dronzer 1, 2, and even Holy See have merged here. But what if they share the same world to begin with? After all, Dronzer and the Holy See are intertwined on the world stage. Maybe the story is just set in a different world, no? That could be possible, given how they all came from the same creator. So if there's actually a hidden backstory that connects them, he wouldn't be surprised. Just now, one of the nobles shouted the highest bid yet. 500,000. Xenon turns his attention back to the auction and uses God Eye to check Urza's stats. Her skills include body enhancement and mighty hammer art, and she is a level 9. She's quite the hard hitter. Even Xenon couldn't believe how she already has 3 skills under her belt, and they're all combat skills too. From this alone, our guide just knows Urza is a powerhouse. She's exactly who he's looking for. But if this world is really connected to the Holy See, then Urza should follow the script of the Holy Sea's tale, right? Our protagonist remembers in the story that she was treated as a slave at first, and then later joined the protagonist's crew. This only means that this auction is the very catalyst that seals her fate as a slave. If our guide buys Urza here, then that means he practically threw a wrench in the grand tapestry of the Holy See storyline. Plus, Urza ended up as the protagonist's lover back then. So is it really okay for him to force his own selfish whims and change her fate? Just then, Xenon notices something. He starts making his way back, just as the auctioneer announces that if anyone would bid higher than the current number, which is 6.5 million, Urza stands timidly in front of everyone and starts to get teary-eyed. Her poor, pitiful face got our guide clutching his face until he raised his hand and bid 10 million. What the? The crowd couldn't believe it. 10 million? The sudden boost in price is insane. As Xenon made his way down, he could hear the other nobles questioning him about whether he was really hellbent on spending that much for a slave. Well, he knows that it's a pretty steep price tag, okay? With 10 million, he could already have an entire party with the ultimate gear, ready to face the final boss with unmatched might. Xenon finally makes it back to his seat, muttering how he is really gone and done it this time. What he did might just be the reckless force that twists the fabric of the future, and perhaps it may even change the outcome of the war. In the original storyline, Urza, the White Ogre, finds salvation in the hands of the Holy See hero. But until then, she is shattered by the vile deeds of the noble class. Knowing she's headed for a tragic future, of course, our Xenon can't just sit back and allow that to happen, can he? But he raises a good point, though, because if you're the hero of Sacred Ocean, then shouldn't you be able to tweak the script yourself? Besides, he can't bring himself to fully transform into a full villain like the original Xenon. There's no way in hell. The auctioneer continues to bark, hoping someone will counter Xenon's 10 million offer for Urza. Is anyone brave enough to challenge such a high price? The crowd was tense. Meanwhile, one fat noble was reeling from such a price. He glares at Xenon from his seat, but of course, our guy glares back, and his stare is even more intimidating and taunting. Ha, as if he's ever going to lose a staring contest with such a villainous face like this. Just then, Urza spots him in the crowd, so Xenon gives her a little wave and smiles. The little ogre was shocked and turned away, blushing. Xenon says there's no need to be scared. He's just trying to help her out. But the fat man just couldn't let Urza go. He raised his hand and bid for 10.5 million. Oh, the slight increase is enough to make the auctioneer feel even more joyous. We've got 10.5 million. Is anyone willing to go higher than that? With a straight face, Xenon simply lays out his price, 12 million. The stout man clenches his fists in frustration, while the rest of the nobility can't believe it. This guy really dropped 12 million for this girl? With that, the auctioneer announces that the fierce demon maiden is finally sold for 12 million gold, urging everyone to give a round of applause to the gentleman who bought her. Everyone cheered, and Xenon also acknowledged it simply by raising his hand. After the event, he wraps up his transaction and heads to one of the tents, where he sees Urza standing. Suddenly, the maiden ogre instantly launches herself into him for a hug, introducing herself happily, and is pleased to serve her master. Well, Xenon didn't expect that, as he remained still, a little taken aback by her character. Urza clings to one of his arms, promising that she will work tirelessly for her master. In an exchange, she hopes he will cherish her forever. Wait, hold up. Our protagonist is confused, because this is her real character? In the Holy See game, she was practically expressionless, so much like a doll even. But right now, the Urza in front of her is like a puppy. Could this be the true Urza, the White Ogre? Urza also noticed how quiet her master is, so she asks if something's up. Xenon says it's nothing, and continues to observe the Urza in front of him. Maybe this is what Urza is really like, you know? Before she became a mere plaything in the game. Looking at how scantily clad she is, our Xenon can't help but worry about how this will affect his reputation. If he went around for a stroll with her dressed like an obvious slave, his villainous face would get even more attention. as in, he's a step closer to getting reported. He turns to the man from before, Respold, and asks if he has any available spare clothes. The latter happily asks if they was looking for a change of clothes. So Xenon explains that he can't take Urza home looking like this. This request made the older man giggle. Of course, he had some clothes in the back. With that, he urges Xenon to check out what they have in store for the slave in the waiting room. Xenon tells Urza to follow the older man, but the overly attached Urza refuses. Our guy had to level with her and assure Urza that she has nothing to fear. He'll be right here once she's done. Okay? So she should run along. Urza feels anxious at the separation, so she can't help but ask if he will still be here after. In the end, Urza hurries along to the waiting room, so our Xenon sits by himself to wait for her to get dressed. Actually, they're just separated by a mere curtain, and after a little while, Urza announces that she has changed into a new outfit. Well, let's see it then. Xenon has his eyes on her, just as she draws the curtains from the other side to reveal her new look. Xenon just stared at the image before him, with Urza happily showing off the same clothes she was wearing earlier, save for the shoes on her feet. Of course, our hero called her out. A change of clothes means what she was wearing, not just shoes. But little Urza was happy with just her new shoes. Xenon turns his attention to the collar on her neck. If she's happy with a new pair of shoes, well, at least he just wants her collar off. Respoldi holds both of his hands up, a little worried, as he low-key advised our hero against that idea. He explains that a slave's collar is proof of ownership. Urza's collar has his name inscribed, marking Xenon as her owner, so removing it makes her masterless. Obviously, this isn't ideal since it puts her at risk. Huh? How was she put at risk by simply removing her collar? Xenon has no idea how that could be. Well, Respoldi simply tells him that a slave without a master has no rights. With that said, she could be abducted or abused without legal repercussions. And before Xenon forgets, she's a rare Oni tribe member. She's a highly coveted slave on the market. Respoldi says that without Xenon's proof of ownership, she might get kidnapped instantly. This only makes Xenon hum. Of course, how could he forget? In the Slayer's kingdom, non-human races have low status. This means none of them live in town unless they're enslaved. This phenomenon is also the reason why the relationship between elves and dwarves is strained. Urza's horns mark her as a non-human, and without a collar, she'd be treated as an escaped slave. But what about her hero sanity? He's not into putting collars on women. As if sensing his distress, Urza approaches Xenon and tells him that she doesn't mind the collar. The collar proves that she belongs to him, and she likes it. After pondering for a bit, Xenon finally says okay. If she's fine with it, then what else can he do? He's not really convinced, but he'll let this one slide. Now then, Respoldi motions to the room at the back so that the two can enjoy their time without being disturbed. He leads them to the room, and when Xenon sees the giant bed with a heart-shaped pillow in it, he just knows this old man is definitely misunderstanding something here. Well, now that they're here, let's get on with it. Urza happily takes her clothes off and lies on the bed. Our Xenon practically glued himself to the wall with the way he backed off. Is she crazy? Don't just strip off like that. But Urza only looks at her quizzically. Aren't they supposed to make a baby now? Xenon grabbed her clothes and had her put them back on. Although she's still questioning whether or not they'll do it, she still put her clothes back on. Just what the hell did she think she was? He's not into little girls. He pokes her forehead, telling Urza that she should change her thinking. Besides, she can't explore a dungeon dress like that. Xenon explains that the reason he bought her is because of her dungeon crawling skills, and it's not because he wants her as a sex slave. When she heard dungeon, Urza's eyes twinkled as she started jumping for joy. She is already excited for it because Urza loves battles. Even if she's just a slave, getting into a dungeon is a dream come true for her. The Oni tribe sure loves fighting. Huh? Xenon starts to rummage through his magic bag, while Urza happily claims that she'll kill a lot. Our hero can only nod and smile, because how can she say such scary things with a cute face like that? Xenon pours the contents of his magic bag on the floor, and it's a mountain load of weapons and armor. He can't equip these, but he decided to keep them for when a girl joins his party. He picks a few armors, a few accessories, and a weapon from the pile, urging Urza to try them on. If it doesn't fit, he says he'll just adjust it for her. Like before, Urza readily took her clothes off and changed in front of her master. Finally, she's wearing something decent, chosen by Xenon. Moreover, it feels great. She's impressed that the armor and weapons of the human world are pretty good. Then, she grabs a giant barbed club, finally completing her fit. Mind you, this is no ordinary club. It's the Hammer Oni club with high attack power and requires hammer skills to use it. This bad boy can shatter a skull if the poor person who happens to be on the other end of it takes a hit. But the thing is, this weapon was put on the back burner because there weren't a lot of characters who had hammer skills. But Xenon lucked out because Urza has those, as seen in how easily she wields them. In fact, they suit her perfectly. The little Oni is waving it around like a stick, happy for this gift from her master. Xenon's just happy that she likes it, with Urza hugging the weapon and promising to wipe them all out for him. The spikes on the club are pressing hard against her face. Doesn't that hurt her? Instead of asking that, Xenon questions if all ogre folks are battle maniacs, to which Urza just giggles. Suddenly, she drops the club and hugs Xenon, saying it's because she adores him. Huh? Our hero has a hard time understanding why she's so attached to him. After all, they've just met, and he just equipped her. There's no reason for her to be affectionate like this. He reminded her that he had just bought her as a slave. Besides, even if she's a battle-loving lunatic, he can't understand why some people are so drawn to her. There was a pause before Urza shyly looked away, saying she loves a good-looking face. She starts playing with her fingers, saying how handsome he is, and it makes her so happy to belong to someone like him. But wait, hold up. Is she really referring to him? After all, girls avoid our Xenon, and they even scream when they see him smile. But Urza continues listing down the things she likes about him, like how fierce his eyes are, and how hawk-like her nose is. He's a true villain whom no one dares to approach. Xenon had to ask if she was being for real, and the little Oni said she was. In her eyes, his gaze could kill with intensity, and he also has a wicked and pointed nose. Her master's sharp teeth make it look like it's for devouring flesh. He's just Urza's ideal man, like a legendary demon god. Xenon collapses on his knees. That's good to hear and all, but why does he feel like it's not a compliment? This is the first time a girl has ever praised him, and it kinda makes him cry. Urza couldn't take a hint and continued praising her master. She was already smitten the moment she saw him at the auction. It made her believe that fate brought him to Urza. Poor Xenon is down to his last HP after hearing what she has to say to him. Well, on the bright side, if a female companion likes him, that's a good thing, right? At least it's better than being disliked. He tells Urza that if she's done changing, then she should follow him, which she does so happily. Respold notices that they're ready to go, and he's more than happy that the two developed a bond quickly. He even praises Xenon, saying the young master seems to be just as strong at night, just like his father. Xenon didn't bother correcting what the older man had to say, as he's fed up with how Respold keeps on misinterpreting things on his own. Still, the older man bows his head and urges the young master to visit the auction again. He promises that more slaves will be waiting for Xenon. The master and slave make their way home in the dark city streets, illuminated by the street lamps. Xenon's glad that at least there are no prying eyes here, so it's a good time to have a little stroll, with Urza trailing behind him. It's an hour's walk to the mansion, so it's best if they hurry up. He turns to look at Urza, carrying the club as if it's nothing. She even looks like a bunny in his eyes. But all of a sudden, Urza felt something. She grabs Xenon, her club ready, until our hero finally notices it. There are men following them. Soon, the two were surrounded by unknown men. But Xenon's focus was on the ringleader. Looks like the latter has taken the time to prepare an ambush for them, no? That's when someone slowly makes his way to face Xenon. It was that other nobleman he fought in the bidding to get Urza. But wait, who is he again? The older man feels the rage build up because how can Xenon forget? As expected, a man who spends 12 million doesn't even notice pebbles on the roadside. You can actually see Xenon doing his best to remember who this guy is, until he finally recognizes the old fart. He's the reason why our Xenon spent more than necessary at the auction earlier. Well, at least this stout gentleman has the courtesy to bow. Anyway, what does he want? The old fart even brought his scary friends along with him. But the older man feigns innocence. What scary friends? This is a delightful party, and he would love for Xenon to join them. The older gentleman kindly asks Xenon to hand Urza over quietly, promising that the latter will walk away with only a few broken bones if he does. Our hero finds this old fart amusing with the way he's so predictable. Obviously, he couldn't let Urza go, and losing to Xenon might have been a blow for him. Just look at what he did. He brought friends over to convince our hero to hand over Urza. Sure, some kind of convincing this is. So, again, the old fart kindly asks if Xenon would reconsider. Now, whatever should our Xenon do? The old fart grins in anticipation, thinking Xenon would be intimidated. But the latter has more important things on his mind, like what pseudo-humans are. So, he asks the old fart what those are, since he has never heard of them before. The latter's a bit surprised that the young man doesn't know, but he still enlightened him, saying that's what they call subhuman pretenders. He adds that it's a common term in their country. Is the term not used here? Nah, Xenon thinks he's just outdated. But one thing he does know is that he doesn't like it. For one, who decided subhumans are lesser beings? Such an infuriating term. Anyway, as for the older man's request earlier of handing over Urza, it's a hard no for him. Urza belongs to Xenon, and he's not giving her up. Our hero has no idea who the hell this old fart is, but what he knows is that the latter is leaving empty-handed tonight. Urza, with her selective hearing, really believed that her master just called her my girl. So, of course, she's feeling elated. As for the old man, well, not so much. He wanted to resolve this peacefully, and found unruly kids like Xenon irritating. So yeah, if the young man wishes to die, then die. By all means, he said. Upon hearing that, Xenon pulls the noble card, saying that not only is he a noble, but he's also got quite the influence around this area. Is the old fart really sure he wants to do this? There will be consequences, you know. The old fart knows our Xenon came from a well-off family, because he wouldn't be able to pay for a 12 million slave now, would he? But you see, this old man can't back down. With Urza in his hands, he can finally make it big in his country by offering a rare Oni subhuman. He can almost see it. The esteemed one will be pleased. And soon, he will become the latter's right hand. Hey, the esteemed one, huh? Our protagonist now finally remembers it. Given this old fart's dramatic speech and theatrical demeanor, Xenon knows that the man before him is from the kingdom of Quran. He's right? And if he remembers correctly, the esteemed one the latter was referring to is Marshal Zagatellos of the Quran army, correct? Huh? How did he know? Based on the face the old fart is making, it looks like our hit the nail on the head. To be fair, he doesn't know what this noble's name is. He's just a side character after all. But what he does remember is that this fart and the Marshal appeared as villains in the game Holy See. Marshal Zagatellos is a die-hard lolicon and is only into subhuman girls. In the game, poor Urza suffered terribly as his slave. But fortunately, she was rescued by the game's hero and joined them. So, this old fart's plan is to offer Urza and Ryza an aid. No? His story checks out now that it's clear to Xenon. As for the older man, he asks Xenon why he knows who he is and about the Marshal. But our hero doesn't need to answer him. Well, whatever the case may be, the old fart is determined to kill Xenon right then and there, and as if Xenon would lose to the likes of him. In fact, it gave him the right to fight back. So now, he is free to exact violence upon them. One of the nobleman's friends attacks Xenon, but the latter quickly draws his weapon and instantly cuts down a few of them in one sweep. Honestly, Xenon has no idea why a Quran noble is here. But since they're the ones who struck first, he's more than happy to fight back. But in doing so, he knows that he's altering the storyline for the Holy See. On the other hand, taking out villains like these surely won't bother the real hero, right? What kind of hero would they be if they did? If anything, the real hero should just consider it as thanks for giving him Urza in this timeline. Speaking of Urza, The little Oni is patiently waiting for her master's orders until he finally tells her to ready her weapon. She gets into position, and despite her cute face, she's exuding a true warrior's aura right now. Xenon tells her to watch his back, but of course, she pouts. She wants to jump into the fray, for God's sakes, and this isn't doing nothing but teasing her. Xenon takes out an item from his magic bag, the Grimoire of Dark Magic, and hurls it high in the air. He reads the ancient texts as they glow until finally he gives the order, "Kill that man." Unfortunately, this one is not for Urza, but for Xenon's own dark magic. He unleashes his dark attribute area magic, Blood Carpet. What happened next was quick, as the dark matter rushed from Xenon's hand all the way to the ground before emerging as giant spikes, impaling his enemies and granting a painful and horrible death to them. Glad the impaler would be proud, the old fart collapses to the ground out of sheer horror at what he just witnessed. Xenon even admits that this spell is pretty brutal, but it's no surprise since his dad used dark magic too. Is dark magic always supposed to be like this? Just seeing it up close is enough to make him throw up. Anyway, now the only ones left behind are that man and a few others, so finally he gives Urza the go-ahead. With that cute face of hers, she gives Xenon a sweet smile as she tells him that she'll kill them all. She runs straight to her enemies and bashes the first one she sees in the head with her club. Man down. The other guys start calling her a monster and attack her with a sword, but Urza easily holds the man's blade in between her fingers, with the latter struggling to break free. She thrusts her giant club through the man's body, leaving a bloody mess. Now there's just one more to go. The last man is already on the ground, panicking and crying out for help, but Urza refuses to show mercy. Anyone who crosses her master is going down. Urza whacks him to Kingdom Come and sends him flying, with Xenon watching just how the poor man would go. But anyway, work done. Urza celebrates her accomplished task as Xenon gives her a pat for a job well done. He turns to the old fart, asking him what's next since all his friends are gone. Of course, the latter is close to scrambling and pulls the noble card. He's a Korra noble, so killing will just cause a diplomatic issue. To that, Xenon fires back that he himself is a noble, so the old fart already caused a diplomatic issue to begin with. Still, did this old fool really think he could dispose of bodies and hide them? Well, the joke is on him because Xenon can do the same. The old fart really should have backed off after losing the auction. Xenon unleashes his dark magic again, this time in the form of a black snake, as it slithers towards his enemy. In his mind, here he is casually planning to kill this noble guy. He already killed 3 of them with magic, and even after killing for the first time, his heart feels cold. What's most surprising about all this is how he doesn't feel any guilt at all. Has it finally happened? Has he really become the character Xenon Baskerville, body and soul? Or has he always been this way? Which is why Xenon shows him. Back to the current happening, the older man is already on his knees, begging our protagonist to spare him. He'll even pay him any amount that he wants. Too bad for him, the money he spent on Urza is really not an issue for our Xenon. At the mention of her name, the little Oni comes running and starts waving the club around, causing the old fart to back away. He's on the floor again, begging her to stop, but just when she was about to lay it down on him, something cut through the older man's neck. That's weird. Urza didn't see anyone. Alarm bells are blaring in Xenon's head, hoping his little pet would get the message and fall back. Xenon makes a break for it, running around to find the assailant while Urza trails behind him. If even the battle-hardened Urza didn't notice the assailant's presence, then just where the hell is he? Xenon and Urza tread carefully, until finally a voice tells the young master that he shouldn't be so alarmed. A man, garbed in dark clothes from head to toe, who is wearing a mask, finally appears. Just who is this man? Xenon asks who this mysterious figure is, and regardless of the man's identity, our hero also thanks him. The man feels honored, revealing that he's part of the Baskervilles assassination unit, prompting Xenon to ask if his father sent the assassin. Surprisingly, it was Respold who actually hired the assassin. The man further explains that during auctions, it's pretty common for big clients to be attacked. As a result, esteemed clients like Xenon have someone like him for protection. That makes sense. Auctions are a high-stakes form of entertainment after all, and it's a place to flaunt one's financial power. Let's not forget that our hero had just bought an expensive slave, and without protection, which just leaves him as a walking target. Anyway, the man bows in front of Xenon, adding that the young master didn't need any protection, which just shows that the family's future is secure with Xenon as the Baskerville heir. I know the man means well with all these compliments, but for our Xenon, he doesn't really like that he's perceived as his father's successor. With that, he turns away from the assassin and tells Urza they should go. Meanwhile, the man assures Xenon that they'll handle the bodies, so he won't have to worry about anything, bidding the young master to take care on his way back. He also says he's excited to meet the heir of the Hound of Baskerville again. Xenon and Urza walk away, and in due time, reach the Baskerville Manor. Xenon lies awake in his bed, staring up at the ceiling as he unwinds the day's events. He has only been teleported to this game for 2 weeks, and yet he has already made his first kill today. There's a dark voice inside his head, telling him that he shouldn't regret it and that it was necessary. Still, accepting murder is easily wrong. This made him wonder if he is inherently ruthless or if this is the character Xenon's influence. He understands why a warrior like Urza can kill, but him? He was just an ordinary Japanese salaryman 2 weeks ago, and yet he still can't understand why he doesn't feel guilty about killing. Is there something wrong with him? Anyway, despite everything, this is a good situation, and hesitation won't get him far in this world. He had to remind himself that he's not only fighting monsters. There are also cultists and criminals to look out for too. Taking down enemies without hesitation is an advantage, and that's something he will embrace. With a reliable ally, dungeon exploring is possible. Speaking of dungeon exploring, he also knows that no matter how much he knows about this world, he's bound to hit a dead end sooner or later if he goes solo. But with the addition of Urza, his survival rate has significantly increased. If he could wish for more, he could only hope for a magic user or healer, since 2 attackers aren't balanced. Well, that problem would be for future him. He'll just cross that bridge when he gets there. They're still in the early parts of the story, so there's still time. No need to rush. Just then, he hears hurried footsteps approaching, and a moment later, a barely covered Urza emerges, crying out to him with soap suds all over her body. Poor Xenon suffers a nosebleed right then and there, just as the little Oni runs straight to his chest. According to her, the maid was being mean, as she rubbed her hurting eyes. As if that nosebleed wasn't enough this time, blood is fully flowing down his nose as he sees Reviana appear with just a towel to cover her body. She starts scolding Urza for clinging to the young master in that outfit. This view is too much for our Xenon, as he finally collapses into the bed. Too much fan service. But Reviana's determined to haul Urza back into the bath, given how they're not yet done shampooing the little Oni. But the latter has had enough. Her eyes hurt. Xenon, on the other hand, is now soaked too. Wait, now that he remembers it, the Onis don't use soap. Did Urza open her eyes when Reviana was shampooing her? Plus, Urza refuses to let go of her master and clings to him even more, which leaves the maid no choice. With that, she asks Xenon to join them in the bath. He bolts upright upon hearing her request, with his face beet red. Huh? Reviana finds it surprising that the young master is blushing. Even the great Xenon has his weakness, huh? But our protagonist has something else in mind. Does this mean the character Xenon often bathes with Reviana? Could they be more than just acquaintances? A very indecent image of her pops into his head, so he could only lower his head in embarrassment. Right, they should bathe if he resists. They may discover that he's not the real Xenon. Just to be clear, he's not joining her in the bath for fun. He's only doing it to conceal his identity. Yeah, right. Reviana walks ahead, letting him catch a glimpse of her bum, which nearly made our Xenon pass out. Just like that, the 3 of them had an enjoyable and relaxing bath together, with Urza no longer kicking up a fuss. But boy, was Xenon close to passing out after seeing Reviana's body up close now that they're done with the bath and Urza is finally clothed. The little Oni starts getting sleepy. She was already on her way to Xenon's bed when Reviana blocked her, telling the Oni that her bed was ready. but Urza is set on sleeping with Xenon. Fast forward to a moment later. Xenon finds himself sandwiched between Urza and Reviana. So this was the compromise they agreed on. But then again, how was he going to sleep like this? What kind of trial is this? But to be clear, Xenon kept his hands to himself through the night. When morning came, at the first sign of light, Xenon raised his hand in success. Finally, he had waited for this. But is this going to be his life from now on? Urza and Reviana are both sleeping on his sides. For a moment, he pondered whether he should just give in. Looking at Reviana, if he did anything to the maid, how would Urza react? Would she be curious, or would she be scared of him? The worst part is that she may want to experience it too. No, our Xenon is not a lolicon. He bought her purely for her skills, not to cuddle her at night. Even if the little Oni wanted to, he's not even sure how he would react. He turns to Urza, wondering how old she is. She's not really as young as she looks, is she? Maybe she's even older than she looks. Wait, will it be more acceptable if she's much older? Xenon almost gave in that minute, until he started bonking his head to snap out of it. This is just his sleep deprivation getting the better of him. Just then, Urza stirs and finally wakes before clinging to him. She smiles sweetly as she greets him with a good morning. She touches his face and starts stretching it. Yep, she's definitely just a kid. On the other side, Reviana wakes and also greets him with a good morning. She asks him if he slept well, but he could only mumble a yeah. Yeah, as if that's possible. Reviana gets up and tells him that she'll start preparing breakfast in a minute. After having breakfast, Xenon does his morning training and finally puts on his uniform. He's off for today. He calls Urza and asks if she remembers what he taught her last night. The little Oni promises she won't cause trouble. Bringing Urza to the academy is always part of his plan. The Royal Sword and Magic Academy has nobles and royals, so many of the students bring servants and guards. Since their classes include dungeon exploration and monster hunts, he must bring Urza. As the two of them make their way to the carriage, Xenon reminds her that causing trouble at the academy means getting banned. Urza replies that she'll be good and stay with him. Well, if she's this determined to be good, then there won't be any problem, right? The maids bid the young master and Urza off, while the latter enjoys the view as they make their way to the school. She looks so cute, singing happily, but Xenon did find that a bit odd. What has gotten into her to make her this excited? Now it just made him wonder if it's really okay for him to bring her along. While still in the carriage, he asks if she's having fun, and of course it's a yes for her. She's already excited, seeing that she's gonna absolutely smash him as the carriage continues to make its way to the academy. Xenon doesn't really like the sound of what she just said. After a morning that felt rather hectic, Xenon and Ulza boarded the family horse carriage and headed to the academy. Upon arriving there, they both got down from the carriage. Unlike Xenon, who stepped down as casually as usual, Ulza got off with great enthusiasm in her child's uniform. The moment they arrived at the academy, they immediately drew the attention of the students around them. They instantly recognized who had gotten out of the carriage after seeing the carriage's crest. However, what caught their attention even more was Ulza herself. They immediately asked one another, "Who is that cute little kid?" Many questions like that floated from one mouth to another. It was natural for them to question Ulza's presence, since she stood out so much, especially with her horns and ears. On the other hand, Xenon, who had only just realized the students staring at them, was somewhat surprised. The problem was not just 3 or 4 people looking at them, but almost everyone there. He had indeed prepared himself mentally to face such a commotion, but who would have thought it would be this intense? Ulza, who looked so excited and happy, began running cheerfully while urging her master to hurry and head to his class. She even proudly claimed that she would lead him to his classroom. Hearing and seeing how enthusiastic she was made Xenon himself unable to stay calm. He even reprimanded her and ordered her not to act out and to stay behind him. At first, Xenon and Ulza walked into the academy casually, even though the eyes of every student they passed were certainly fixed on them. Especially when they saw Ulza's expression, so innocent and enthusiastic, it drew even more attention. But for Xenon himself, that expression only made him even more restless. considering what Ulza was like as an Oni, and how the Oni race itself usually resided in a highly isolated semi-human territory far from humans. In addition, Ulza herself was also a member of a race focused on combat and had been raised in such an environment. That was the reason he felt uneasy about her being in the academy, especially in an environment full of social interaction. Looking again at how cheerful Ulza was, Xenon let out a small sigh. He tried to calm himself and think clearly, telling himself that all of this was only his own unnecessary worry. He convinced himself that everything would be fine, since he had already warned her many times not to cause trouble and to listen to his orders. Especially since she came to the academy only as his bodyguard, he thought it was impossible for her to start trouble again. Hearing her master sigh, Ulza held his arm and asked in a worried tone about his health. With her innocent thinking, she even assumed her master was having a stomachache. Hearing that, Xenon replied casually, in a tone that showed he did not really care, while patting her head, saying that he was fine. He also explained that he was only thinking. He then warned her again not to cause trouble and ordered her to keep listening to him. Everything initially went smoothly. The two of them walked casually, and the students did not make much of a fuss. But in that quiet moment, Xenon suddenly realized one important thing. He knew that trouble always came from directions one never expected, but also that it would never be far from him. The moment that thought crossed his mind, the thing he feared happened immediately, as if the world wanted to prove him right. Suddenly, Leon's voice rang out, shouting Xenon's family name in anger. Hearing that naturally made Xenon turn toward him with an expression like a villain's. And when he saw Leon himself, he immediately realized that the problem he had just thought of was him. Firmly pointing at him, Leon immediately questioned Ulza's identity beside him. He took issue with Xenon's cruelty in making a child as young as Ulza wear a slave collar. Because of that, he bluntly said that he had apparently judged Xenon wrongly, since he had once respected him for helping to clean up the mess Leon himself had caused. Hearing that naturally irritated Xenon somewhat, because those words were nothing more than an accusation without basis. But he also understood that Leon himself was one of the protagonist figures in the first Danbare game, someone with a strong sense of virtue. If one were to compare him to something, he was like a battle-hungry monster in human form who would willingly risk his life for a girl he had only just met. He was also not the type to turn away from someone in need of help, especially someone like Ulza now, who was a little child already made into a slave. Hearing that, Xenon let out another quiet sigh and muttered that Leon was truly a troublesome man for him. As if not satisfied with what he had said before, Leon spoke again in a firm yet disappointed tone, saying that a few days ago Xenon had saved his classmates while in the dungeon. Because of that, he had thought Xenon was not a bad person, but in truth, his earlier guess had never been wrong. In his eyes, Xenon was a scumbag. So disgusted was Xenon that he simply walked away while muttering, showing just how irritated he was with the noisy Xenon. Now he began to doubt his future goal after the two game worlds had merged. If everything had gone according to the Danbare world scenario, then Leon was supposed to defeat the Demon King and save this world. And from the beginning, he had indeed intended to reach that goal by staying away from the heroines and not kidnapping them. Setting aside the dungeon incident, he had no intention at all of getting involved with Leon or even obstructing his route. But strangely, why was it now Leon who was getting involved with him instead? So pained by thinking about it, Xenon even wanted to curse the fate that had brought him to this point. But even so, there was a slight advantage. He now understood that his original world and this game world were truly different, because this game world was mostly filled with things he could not even predict. Leon, still angry, pointed at Ulza and immediately asked Xenon to free the little girl. Hearing that, Xenon began using his rational response. He replied that yes, it was true that Ulza was a slave, but what exactly was Leon's problem with that? He also explained that Ulza had become his slave after he followed the proper rules and bought her legally. In this academy, bringing subordinates or servants along was also allowed and regulated. Because of that, since he had followed the existing rules, Leon had no right to demand or criticize him. Hearing such a logical yet insulting answer naturally made Leon angry. He scolded him again and said that Xenon had no shame for making a little girl into a slave. It was understandable that he would think that way. Soon after, a familiar voice with the same tone as Leon also voiced its support for Leon. It said that regardless of the existing rules, making a little girl into a slave was something extremely twisted for a human being to do. Hearing that, Xenon reflexively glanced toward the source of the voice and saw Shell there. Seeing Leon's childhood friend there made Xenon let out another long sigh. He was already exhausted dealing with Leon, and now he had to deal with someone like him too. What made him even more tired was that he understood Shell was also a girl with a strong sense of justice, just like Leon, especially when it involved children or women like now. As if still not satisfied, Shell cornered Xenon again by saying that what Xenon did was truly unforgivable. She even assumed, or rather slandered him, by claiming that Xenon would forcibly take Ulza away, just as was commonly done to slaves. Hearing that, Xenon explained like a teacher to a child that in this country, slavery was legal and considered a form of property. They both should have understood very well that forcibly freeing a slave was a crime that fell under theft or robbery. Hearing such a reasonable explanation immediately rendered the two of them speechless. They understood what they were facing at that moment. But then a sentence Xenon had never imagined came out of Leon's mouth. "How much is she?" Hearing that question naturally confused Xenon. Leon, with a reluctant tone, asked again clearly how much he had to pay for Xenon to sell Ulza to him so that he could free her from slavery. Hearing that, Xenon once again let out a long sigh, realizing that Leon really was that type of person. He would keep clinging to problems he should not even be involved in, ending up wasting money, time, and even their efforts. He even felt that all protagonists in games like this were like that, doing all sorts of things that were actually unnecessary. Usually, protagonists like this who were too rigid in their beliefs would only end up making that their own weakness. Xenon fell silent, making Leon think he was calculating the amount he needed. But suddenly Xenon turned his body and ordered him to get lost right away. He also emphasized that he would never sell his slave to Leon no matter how much money Leon offered him. Because to him, Ulza was his slave as well as his valuable partner and companion. After saying that, Xenon walked away just like that. Naturally, that made Leon angry because even after his explanation, Xenon still did not understand what he meant. Without hesitation, he immediately ran and was about to throw a punch at Xenon. Realizing what the would-be hero intended to do made Xenon surprised. Not because of the punch, but because of his action. Because in his opinion, if Leon used violence against an unarmed person or someone who was not resisting in a public place like this, he would end up looking like a bad guy. But since Xenon himself did not want to get involved in an even more complicated problem, he chose to take the punch. At least, that had been his plan. But suddenly Ulza's voice rang out, in a tone full of intimidation and anger, saying that she would never allow Leon to lay a hand on her master. With a sudden and swift movement, Ulza jumped forward and revealed her brutal side to everyone. She took out her favorite weapon and without hesitation swung it toward Leon. The iron club struck the floor with such force that it created a booming sound that echoed everywhere. Fortunately, Leon still managed to realize what was happening and dodge it, while Xenon himself stood there calmly, as if he was not afraid because the one being targeted was not him. After her first attack failed, Ulza immediately glared at Leon with a very annoyed expression because he had dodged her. Her innocent face was now accompanied by an angry expression, and she then ran toward Leon while wildly swinging her club. She said that Leon was blocking her master's path, and therefore she would deal with anyone who became her master's enemy. Hearing that made Leon extremely shocked and panicked. He immediately tried to calm Ulza by explaining that he had intended to save her. But Ulza, who was already in love and fully aware that she wanted to stay with her master, naturally refused to listen to him. As a result, she charged again and swung her club at Leon. Seeing the next attack coming, Leon immediately drew his sword and blocked it. He kept trying to calm her down and explain that his intention was to free her from slavery. Even Shell tried to explain the same thing to Ulza and begged her to listen to them first. But in a serious tone full of determination, Ulza replied, "There is no room for discussion." After saying that, Ulza went wild again and continued chasing Leon like a knight pursuing a thief. The situation there became even more uncontrollable with Ulza's frenzy. The students who had been watching earlier immediately scattered and ran in panic. Even Leon himself was made somewhat terrified by Ulza's ferocious actions. But he also realized that he had to stop his slave quickly before the situation got even worse. After realizing that, Xenon immediately shouted at Ulza and gave her an order. "Ulza, stop. Sit." Yes, it was a bit strange for Xenon to give an order like that to a pet. But Ulza, who had already entered a state of near-mad enthusiasm, seemed not to hear him. Even with a cheerful smile on her face and saying frightening things, Ulza kept chasing Leon while swinging her club. Xenon even yelled at her because she refused to listen. Unfortunately, even after being shouted at, Ulza still would not stop. Xenon naturally became panicked. Only then did he realize that once Ulza entered combat mode, she would no longer pay attention to her surroundings and would begin losing control. The situation grew even more insane. The students ran helter-skelter to save themselves. Seeing that the situation was becoming impossible to control, Xenon finally chose his last option. He would stop his slave with his own hands, even if he had to get hurt in the process. He chose that not only because of the situation, but also because he had to stick to his original plan, which was that the protagonist must not end here by this slave's hands. Ulza kept chasing him and swung her club repeatedly, until finally the distance between them shortened, and Ulza launched her attack again. Leon likewise immediately blocked it in a panic. When the next attack was launched and Leon prepared to block it as usual, the unexpected happened. Even Xenon, who had been running and trying to stop his slave, came to a halt. So did the students watching, who simultaneously let out a painful groan, as if they too could feel what Leon was feeling. It turned out that what Ulza did was a feint attack. Instead of attacking with the club that Leon always blocked, she used her leg to kick Leon's future. This instantly made Leon go limp and collapse onto the road, trembling as he clutched the future that had just been destroyed. Even the male students who saw it also felt pain, because they could understand how agonizing that attack was. When Leon collapsed there, Ulza did not stop. Instead, she continued her intention, as if this were the decisive moment of her action. Yes, her finishing move. She intended to end it there. Seeing that, Xenon ran again and immediately held and pulled Ulza's body away from Leon, while ordering her to calm down and be quiet. Feeling his hand stopping her movement made Ulza's attention shift. But instead of thinking to stop her intention, she thought that her master wanted to do something else with her here. Hearing Ulza's wild guess even made Xenon himself feel a chill. In the middle of the chaos, the teachers finally arrived and immediately checked the situation around them. The students who had been running away immediately reported Leon's collapsed condition. And indeed, when the teachers saw him, they instantly panicked and hurriedly called his name to check his consciousness. And yes, there was no response from him at all. Realizing the situation would get worse if the two of them stayed there, Xenon, with a pale yet expressionless face, urged Ulza to leave immediately. While walking quickly away from the scene, Xenon kept apologizing in his heart to everyone, especially Xenon, for the chaos. He even prayed for peace for Leon, who had lost consciousness. After the chaos, Leon was finally taken by the medical team to the treatment facility. Meanwhile, the teachers began asking for statements and testimony from the students present at the scene. But unexpectedly, the students gave testimony that was beyond what anyone had anticipated. Considering that Leon was the main protagonist of this world, usually every action he took would be supported by the world itself. But these students gave honest, straightforward testimony. It began with one student explaining that Leon had suddenly chosen to use violence in his negotiation. Then the little girl, who was none other than Ulza, acted on the basis of protecting her master and began attacking back, and Leon wanted Xenon to sell his slave to him. Some even concluded, maybe Leon is the one at fault in this matter. From those testimonies, the teacher then informed Xenon and concluded that in this case Xenon was not at fault. But even so, Xenon had also used excessive violence. However, the Academy chose not to press the matter, at least for this one time, and therefore asked and relied on him to keep Ulza under control. Hearing that explanation from the teacher made him understand that the school did not intend to publicize this matter. Zenon then bowed slightly while tapping Ulza on the head and told the teacher that he would make sure to keep an eye on his slave's behavior. After receiving that news, in the academy corridor, Zenon immediately reprimanded her and threatened that he would not take her back to school if Ulza went wild like before. Hearing that, Ulza immediately saluted like a soldier and promised him that she would not go berserk again. After that hectic morning, Zenon and Ulza finally managed to get to class. Many students were already in the classroom. The class was lively as usual. The moment he stepped into the classroom, Zenon was immediately greeted by a male student who looked cheerful as always. It was a very unusual sight, considering that people usually avoided Zenon because of his villain-like face. So when he saw that student, Zenon immediately fell silent in confusion about his identity. The male student quickly explained that he was the one Zenon had once saved. He was John, the student Zenon had rescued in the academy dungeon. Hearing that explanation, Zenon finally understood who he was. As he descended the steps toward his seat, Zenon heard other students whispering about the commotion earlier that morning. From their whispers, Zenon understood that, from their point of view, he was the villain in that incident. That made perfect sense, considering Leon himself was quite popular among the students, so he would naturally be seen as being on the right side. John, walking in front of Zenon in a casual tone, told him not to take it to heart. He knew that the morning chaos had been Leon's own doing, since Leon had been the first to start the fight with Zenon. He also shared his opinion that he understood Leon's feelings as well, because seeing someone walking with a cute little girl while she wore a slave collar did indeed look like a crime. With a smile, John also added that especially with Zenon's villain-like face, it only made him look even more convincing. Hearing that, Zenon immediately sat down with an irritated expression and ordered John to leave him alone. Instead of getting angry or scared, John, who had once received kindness from Zenon, simply laughed and said that Zenon's uniqueness was actually a mystery because he had a villain's face but a kind heart. After chatting with him for a while, Zenon now understood that after he had saved John, the negative thoughts and bad accusations about him had disappeared. And now John saw him for who he truly was. Not long after, suddenly a pair of hands appeared and hugged Ulza from behind, causing Ulza to squirm in surprise and order the person hugging her to let go. When she turned around, she saw a female student who looked extremely delighted at the sight of Ulza. She even hugged her tightly like she was holding a doll and asked Zenon for permission to keep Ulza as a doll in her room. She was Alicia, the same female student who had once nearly died together with John. Seeing that, Zenon casually asked her to be gentle with Ulza, and he also explained that Ulza came from the demon territory and was not yet used to being surrounded by many people. As if she did not care and only cared about Ulza's cuteness, Alicia kept hugging her and remarked that she never imagined a half-beast human could be this cute. Because of that, she wanted one like Ulza for herself. Seeing his friend's behavior, John let out a small laugh and explained to Zenon that Alicia liked small animals or things like that. That was why she was so interested in Ulza, but that did not mean she truly wanted to treat her like a pet. Zenon, understanding that, gave a small smile and answered that he understood and felt relieved that Alicia could be friendly toward Ulza. As if unwilling for Zenon to enjoy that peace, suddenly the classroom door opened forcefully and Shell stood there with an expression and aura resembling that of an ancient human ready for war. Her eyes were fixed directly on Zenon, and her aura showed a very strong hostility. Zenon, realizing that, simply chose to stay silent even though he also felt uncomfortable. On the other hand, John also commented in a frightening yet slightly joking tone that Shell truly held a grudge against Zenon, and that a woman with a grudge was truly terrifying. In his heart, Zenon muttered to himself, realizing that the morning problem had indeed been Leon's fault for starting the argument first and triggering Ulza's rampage. But he also did not deny that he himself was not completely free of responsibility for Ulza's actions. Even so, he still felt annoyed and frustrated at Shell for bearing a grudge against him. Not long after, the teacher entered the classroom and began the lesson. Class proceeded as it normally would, regardless of how the students treated Zenon. Days passed as usual, but there was one difference. Leon had not shown up in class since the morning incident. Xenon even felt confused and asked himself, was the kick to his future really that bad? Even though, in his opinion, the physical damage could be healed with recovery magic, mentally it might be difficult, and it seemed that was the condition Leon was facing. When lunchtime came, the students went to the cafeteria as usual, including Xenon and John. Xenon was talking about Leon, who had already been absent for quite a while, and according to him it might take a rather long time before Leon could return to school. That was understandable, since he was a man who had suffered such a painful injury. John then commented as well, saying that while it might feel understandable, he had still been absent for a whole week, which in his opinion was too long to be absent. What he said was true, but for Xenon, Leon's absence, as the troublesome protagonist, allowed him to live his school life in peace. At least, that was how it felt because Shell, Leon's childhood friend, was still radiating hostility specifically toward Xenon. Well, even though it was a burden, at least she had no intention of bothering or speaking directly to Xenon. On the other hand, Ulza, who had begun to behave herself, had the opposite fate from her master. Now not only Alicia, but also the other female students liked Ulza's cuteness. They often shared their food with Ulza just to get close to her and pamper her. And yes, Ulza certainly did not refuse, so she always ended up with plenty of food on her table, which instantly made her feel like she was in heaven. The innocent smile on her face was already like a reward worthy of the students who shared food with her. Although the situation was quite the opposite for Xenon, thanks to Ulza being liked by the students in his class, the negative perception of him had now decreased, and some of them had even begun to talk to him. According to Xenon himself, even though they had no bad intentions and simply wanted to pamper her, he still felt as if they were treating Ulza like a pet. Feeling as though she were being treated like a child, Ulza, with a red face from embarrassment and a pout, asked them to stop treating her like a little kid. The contradiction between her reaction and her words only made the students who liked her even more fond of her. The next day passed peacefully as before. It was so peaceful that Xenon, the villain-faced man, and John both let out satisfied sighs while in the cafeteria. John once again commented on Leon, who still had not come to class today either. Xenon then added that it was understandable if he did not come today as well, because getting kicked in the groin by a little girl was almost enough to destroy two things: his future and his mental state. John nodded in understanding and commented that if that happened to him, he would definitely be traumatized. John also immediately covered his groin as if he could imagine how painful it would be if that happened. Hearing that, Xenon could only smile and nod in agreement. John then voiced another opinion, saying that Leon looked like an idiot for intending to take another person's slave. Xenon did not answer directly, but in his heart he thought the same. Based on what he knew, Leon was someone with a very strong sense of justice, to the point that he sometimes seemed obsessed with it. But maybe because Leon was the type of protagonist who got excited easily, he often acted impulsively without thinking of the consequences first. Besides that, he was also not sure whether the Leon now was still the same Leon from the game. After all, he was trying to save a girl who had been enslaved, as he would naturally do. But what made him different was that he was trying to save someone from another world, namely Ulza. In addition, reality at this moment did not match the game's flow because the two game worlds had collided. Maybe with a situation like this, not bound by the rules of a single world, it would feel barbaric and entertaining from the perspective of a comic or anime. But in reality, something like that would only be very troublesome. Reality was not as simple as a story neatly divided into two sides of good and evil. The truth was, there was also a gray area, and that was what dominated. If a hero arbitrarily judged everything as evil based only on his own perspective, then he was nothing more than an extremely annoying nuisance. While shoveling food into his mouth, Xenon snorted with a smile. He then commented that Leon was too hasty and careless, and that sometimes pretending not to see and letting something pass by was the best choice. John, with his mouth still full of food, commented that yes, he was an idiot, but in his opinion he was not a bad person either. Xenon nodded in agreement and added that he hoped that one day the time would come when the two of them could understand each other. Of course, that was also so they could ensure the Demon King's defeat later on. Soon after, Ulza let out a satisfied sigh and said that her stomach was full now. Hearing that, Xenon turned toward her and saw that many dirty plates and bowls were scattered in front of her table. Yes, Ulza had eaten heartily as usual. After that, Xenon invited her to return to class first. The two of them walked through the hallway, but along the way Xenon's attention was drawn elsewhere, and he turned toward the window. Looking down, he saw a group of students surrounding a female student and apparently inviting her to join their group. The students kept urging her to join, even promising that joining would not disappoint her, because she would be a healer in the rear line while they would be in the front line. As if unwilling to give up, they also offered this invitation as a trial for her, asking her to join only for this mission. The female student looked overwhelmed and very hesitant. She had previously rejected their offer, but seeing them persist so strongly, she also tried to give a reasonable explanation, even though she herself was somewhat frightened. She said that joining a group made up only of men was a little. The female student did not finish her sentence in order to prevent the situation from becoming worse. Hearing the conversation from the corridor made Xenon realize that the students were being too forceful in asking a female student to join them. When he looked more closely, he saw that the female student being invited was none other than Centria, one of the main heroines and also the same person who had helped heal the students during their first dungeon exploration. She was an excellent healer or cleric, and also a saint from the Centria church. Seeing his master suddenly stop made Ulza ask what her master was looking at. Xenon did not answer directly because the situation felt familiar to him. Thinking it over again, he suddenly realized that this was the same situation that appeared in his game, where it became the starting point for Aerith joining Leon's party. When Aerith was cornered into joining the students' group, Leon arrived and immediately stood in front of her. In a straightforward tone and with a serious gaze, he explained to those students that Aerith had already decided to join his group. His intimidation was enough to make the students back off. To reinforce his words, Leon without hesitation took Aerith's hand and invited her to leave. Leon's hand, to Aerith, felt like the hand of someone saving her from a situation she could not handle alone. Even though she was a saint, she had a common weakness: communication. Because of that, seeing Leon's courage then, Aerith began to develop herself and became a promising heroine for the future. Remembering that moment made Xenon smile to himself, feeling happy that he could witness the event directly with his own eyes. After thinking that, Xenon continued walking down the corridor, but his steps abruptly stopped when he realized something important. So sudden was it that Ulza, who was behind him, ended up bumping into her master's back. When Ulza asked why her master had suddenly stopped, Xenon immediately turned and looked back through the same window toward Aerith with a panicked expression. The more he thought about it, the more panicked Xenon became. He had just remembered that Leon, the troublemaker, was also absent from the academy today. In other words, Leon would never come to rescue Aerith at this critical moment. On the other hand, Aerith, still cornered by the students, now looked completely overwhelmed and frightened as those students kept forcing her to join them. Realizing that one important variable was missing made Xenon look panicked. That variable was Leon. His panic only grew worse when he heard one of the blonde-haired students trying to persuade Aerith by saying that his father was a count and that he had a good relationship with Aerith's father, who was a viscount. In other words, that student intended to use his father's position, considering that a count's rank was higher than a viscount's. Realizing the meaning behind the student's words made Aerith even more overwhelmed, and she fell silent for a moment before accepting. In a calm tone, she accepted their offer and would join their group only this once. Hearing that, smiles bloomed on their faces, and with great enthusiasm the students immediately said that they would go to the dungeon right after the academy ended and would start making their plans now. One of the students without hesitation placed a hand on Aerith's shoulder as if they were already close, and even from Aerith's calm expression, her eyes showed that she was uncomfortable with that student. And indeed, that student's hand moved to a place he should not have touched. Aerith's gaze changed from uncomfortable to horrified, but even so her facial expression remained calm, as if she were trying to keep everything inside by herself. The crazy thing was that none of the other students reprimanded him, and instead they laughed and joked. Xenon, seeing all of that, became increasingly panicked and disoriented. He had never expected that a plot twist like this would actually happen, where the heroine would be taken by side characters like them. Although he also knew that Aerith was a noblewoman and he was sure they would not do anything too extreme to her too quickly, it still worried him. Especially since their motive for targeting her was so obvious. Xenon kept muttering as if calling for Leon, who still had not come, or hoping for a miracle that would make him suddenly appear here. He even felt that losing the main heroine not because of himself as the villain, but because of side characters, made him unable to laugh at this ridiculous situation. But no matter how hard he hoped, nothing happened. Worried to the point of exhaustion, Xenon let out a long sigh and went limp. He felt that everything had turned into a huge disaster. Since the rice had already turned into porridge, he could only hope that the consequences of Aerith not being saved would not become a major problem later on. And if this continued, then it was certain that Aerith would never become a member of Leon's party, while Leon himself would only fall deeper into ruin. Xenon then left that corridor with an expression full of panic, while Ulza followed him innocently from behind, as if trying to understand the situation her master was experiencing. Time passed, and today class ended earlier than usual. The students looked relaxed in the classroom during this free period. Some were chatting casually. Others were eager to hone themselves by inviting their friends to explore the academy dungeon again. Some were planning to train alone in the academy's practice field. Everyone was busy with their own activities. But not Xenon. He sat at his desk with his thoughts drifting elsewhere. Yes, he was thinking about Aerith, whom he had seen earlier. No matter how hard he tried to forget about it, he still could not ignore them. He even clicked his tongue in irritation and muttered to himself that this situation was not good. Turning his gaze toward those students, he saw that they had begun their plan. With great enthusiasm, and of course still with those indecent actions, they started discussing their dungeon target, the Cave King's bedchamber. They chose that dungeon because they felt safe, considering that a high-level healer or cleric like Aerith was with them. Hearing their destination, Xenon realized that the dungeon was located not far from the city. It was a dungeon that served as a habitat center for stone-type monsters, such as golems. Indeed, that dungeon was very beginner-friendly because it was not difficult to clear as long as they had a mage and a healer. Even so, worry still clouded Xenon's heart. He tried to calm himself by thinking that as long as nothing extreme happened there, everyone would be fine. But instead of calming him, that only made him even more worried. He grew frustrated to the point that he slammed the table and stood up from his seat. He realized there was no point in constantly worrying about something without taking any preventive action. Because of that, he decided to go to the dungeon. He thought that going to the dungeon and hunting some monsters might help distract him. Seeing his master getting up to leave, Ulza immediately followed him while asking where they were going. Stretching his body, Xenon answered that going somewhere far away was troublesome, and that maybe he would go to the academy dungeon instead. But suddenly Ulza asked a question Xenon had never thought of. Weren't we planning to chase that girl? It was a question that was almost impossible to come out of this muscle-brained kid. Even Xenon, hearing it, was stunned into silence for a moment. Even so, he still rejected the idea by asking what made her think he had to do such a thing. With her innocent and honest expression, Ulza answered that it was because her master had been making a face that looked like he wanted to chase that girl. Wasn't her master worried about that girl? That question and explanation instantly shook Xenon, who always looked calm. But rather than seeming shaken, he looked more deeply surprised by his slave's response. Until now he had not paid much attention to this slave of his, and although she looked like someone only interested in fighting, was it possible that she was actually the type who was sensitive and paid attention to her surroundings more than he had expected? Since her master did not answer her question, Ulza, still innocent, gritted her teeth a little as she made up her mind. She then pulled on her master's uniform sleeve and dragged him along while emphasizing that if her master wanted to chase that girl, then they had to hurry or else they would not be able to catch her. Xenon then said, "I never said I was going to chase her." He added that besides, it was not certain anything would even happen to them. In his heart, he admitted that the students' way of recruiting Aerith was indeed very forceful, but technically they had not truly broken any rules. Bringing up their noble status was not elegant, but such things were also not uncommon at the academy. Xenon then lightly flicked Ulza's forehead and explained to her that the difficulty level of the dungeon, the Cave King's bedchamber, was not high, and as long as they did not suffer very bad luck there, his help would not be needed. Even though he said that to Ulza, the main reason Xenon chose to refuse was because the one who should save Aerith was Leon. In his opinion, a villain like him should not be the one to come and get involved with her. In other words, he was giving Leon another chance. Besides that, he also understood that his fear might come true if he saved her and instead accelerated the route where he would steal the heroines. Hearing that reason, Ulza fell silent for a moment. From her earlier excitement, her attitude slowly changed. The hand holding her master's uniform sleeve went limp, and she hugged him while hiding her blushing face. It was not from embarrassment, but more from sadness. She then asked again, "Then why does Master have such a confused expression?" That question once again hit Xenon hard. He knew very well that deep in his heart, his excitement was burning fiercely. He desperately wanted to save Aerith. But even so, he could not decide on his choice. That was because of his trauma from the game itself, where in Danbury Serial 2 Aerith ended up being played with by Xenon. That led Leon, who was regarded and admired as a hero, to end up reviving the Demon King after falling into hatred. He only hoped he could pretend not to see what had happened earlier. Besides that, he also realized that he had been pushing himself too hard, so he had no right to laugh at Leon at this point. Hearing that her master did not answer and seeing his face become even more uncertain, Ulza, still innocent, looked happy because she could guess her master's feelings. In her simple tone, she said that she was not smart, so she did not know what her master was worrying about right now. But there was a proverb from the Oni race that went something like, "If an Oni is in trouble, then they only need to bite first." Hearing that, Xenon frowned slightly and asked what that proverb meant. Ulza innocently explained that, instead of worrying, it was better to sink one's teeth in first, meaning kill and devour the enemy first, and then worry about the details afterward. Do not think too much about it, just slaughter them and think about it afterward however one likes. Because of that, she suggested that if her master truly could not do anything other than worry, then he should just find someone his master truly hated and beat them one by one. Hearing that crazy idea made Xenon freeze in utter shock. Truly the mindset of a muscle-brained race. But even though it sounded like a stupid idea, for Xenon's current foggy state of mind it felt refreshing. Xenon laughed out loud and commented that this war-crazy kid was ridiculously stupid, a little strange, but that it was truly a way of life, and he admitted that with that kind of principle, worrying about things sounded pointless. He then crouched down and began patting Ulza's head. He commented that, as she said, it was not bad to be an idiot once in a while. Besides, Leon was now lying in bed anyway, so there was no need to worry about scenarios or fate flags. Because of that, he felt he should imitate Ulza's and Leon's habit of acting however they wanted once in a while. Being praised and having her head patted made Ulza smile happily. Xenon admitted that he himself did not know what the consequences in the future would be if he got directly involved with the heroines in this world. Even so, his final action was only to save her, not to steal her. If his action ended up negatively affecting the scenario, then Leon would be the one who should or would pay the price. The earlier problem where Leon's future had been kicked by Ulza was his own fault, and his absence until now was also his own decision. Therefore, it would be extremely unreasonable for Xenon to use his brain worrying about something like that. Xenon and Ulza then stepped out of the academy with light expressions and cheerful smiles. In a tone full of energy and without any burden on his mind, Xenon said that no matter what the result would be, he would always play his role as the villain. Because of that, he would do everything as he pleased, save whoever he wanted to save, and destroy whoever he disliked. Ulza, who fully understood her master's words, also walked beside him with great enthusiasm and nodded in agreement. Xenon then shouted in relief, "Simple is best." Ulza also commented excitedly that her master was the best. With that overflowing enthusiasm, the two of them immediately got ready without thinking twice. They changed their uniforms and equipped themselves before heading to the dungeon that Aeritha's group was going to, namely, the Cave King's bedchamber. Heading toward the city, they arrived at that dungeon. And indeed, the dungeon was truly very close to the city. In fact, it was inside the city itself. At the bottom of a street in the city, there was an open corridor entrance. That was the place to enter the dungeon. And at the end of that corridor, there was a dungeon door. Once they arrived there, they immediately prepared themselves. Xenon then invited Ulza to immediately enjoy their hunt in this dungeon. When they entered the dungeon, they were immediately greeted by a horde of stone-type monsters in various forms. Ulza immediately charged forward without fear. She began swinging her club wildly as usual. No matter how big the opponent was, she kept striking it. Even monsters smaller than herself. Ulza's enthusiastic shouts could be heard as she continued slaughtering the monsters one by one in front of them. Even Xenon himself could only stand frozen as he watched, not getting a chance to attack. On the other hand, Ulza only grew more excited with every strike, and she often uttered frightening words with each swing. Seeing that made Xenon give an awkward laugh. He had not expected that a blunt, brutal weapon like that could be so effective against stone-type monsters too. That also showed that Ulza's destructive power, or brute force, was truly beyond reason. After slaughtering everything, Ulza returned to her master's side in high spirits. Xenon praised her and patted her head as usual. He felt both satisfied and unnerved by his slave, since she could wipe out those monsters so easily. No wonder she had been able to do that much to Leon. They kept walking deeper into the dungeon, and before long they had reached the 10th floor. Xenon warned his slave that the monsters from this floor onward would be stronger than those on the previous floor, so he asked her to be careful. As usual, Ulza accepted the order gladly. Even so, worry once again clouded Xenon's heart, because they had come this far and still had not managed to catch up with Aretha's group. He felt that the group of students was really competent to have gotten that far ahead. Entering the next floor, the two of them immediately faced stone-type bear monsters. They were still furry, but their bodies had stones as armor. Seeing the monster, Xenon became alert and was about to warn Ulza to be careful. But his words stopped when he saw Ulza already rushing forward with great enthusiasm. And yes, once again Ulza immediately targeted the monster's groin and smashed it very hard. That made the stone bear monster collapse in an instant. On the other hand, Xenon, who had already prepared his sword and magic, could only end up as a background character. Once again, he did not get a chance to show off. Seeing that the bear monster had already fallen, Ulza continued to hammer it, making sure it was truly and completely defeated. On the other side, Xenon couldn't believe it because ever since they entered the dungeon, he himself hadn't been given a chance to fight. Not even a fight, there wasn't even any warm-up. Ulza, who had finished dealing with the monster, let out a very relieved and satisfied sigh. But the disappointed Xenon approached her and, in an angry tone, ordered her to stay in the rear guard until he commanded her otherwise. Hearing that immediately made Ulza's body jolt in panic. She then asked for the reason and even explained her actions so that her master could avoid danger. But Xenon, who was already irritated because he hadn't been given his share, immediately dismissed her reason and emphasized that it was his order and there would be no more objections. Hearing that, Ulza immediately put on a pleading expression, hoping her pitiful face could make her master relent. But that only made Xenon feel that Ulza didn't trust his safety. He then explained that he wasn't as weak as Ulza thought, to the point of needing constant protection. While the two of them were talking, one monster of the same type appeared again and immediately attacked them. Seeing that, a smile began to bloom on Xenon's face. He felt happy because his turn had finally arrived. He immediately charged forward, perfectly dodging every attack from the bear monster. Then he smoothly launched a counterattack. Xenon grinned and commented to the bear monster that he still remembered its attack pattern very clearly. After the counterattack succeeded, the bear monster began to change its fighting style. It lowered both arms and its body looked like it was preparing to charge at him. Realizing this, Xenon stepped backward into the monster's path, as if baiting it. And yes, the monster took the bait. It immediately ran with all its strength and charged toward Xenon. When the distance between them grew shorter, Xenon immediately jumped, avoiding the bear monster's charge, which ended up making it crash hard into the dungeon wall. While the bear monster was stuck, Xenon used that opportunity to land on its back and then unleashed a rain of sword stabs. As a result, his attack immediately brought down the monster. While sheathing his sword again, he then asked for Ulza's opinion about his proven strength. Ulza nodded in agreement and then hugged him while commenting in a happy tone that she knew her master was strong and truly worthy of being her master. Hearing that made Xenon happy, but that happiness only lasted for a moment after he saw a pile of similar monsters in the place where Ulza had been earlier. Yes, Ulza had slaughtered far more than her master himself. As a result, Xenon commented that hearing praise from Ulza's mouth sounded a bit sarcastic, but even so, it still wasn't bad to receive it. Based on the previous fight, Xenon realized that he had successfully defeated a mid-level monster without using his magic. Even though his skill proficiency level was still low, thanks to his knowledge and the mechanics or attack patterns of the monsters, he could still fight them even against high-level enemies. If he fought strong enemies, his skill proficiency would also increase. Because of that, if this continued, he was certain he would become strong enough to conquer this dungeon in the near future. Xenon then reminded Ulza again not to be too confident inside the dungeon, because in a place like this there would always be risks they would face without realizing it. Their journey continued, room by room, floor by floor. The two of them slaughtered every monster that approached and stood in their way, like slaughtering machines. Not long after, the two of them finally reached the 8th floor of the dungeon. This floor's area was quite different from the previous floors, which looked like cave labyrinth corridors. But this time it looked like a frozen sea of stone. Sharp stalactites hung from the cave ceiling, while stalagmites grew from the floor like spears. Considering this floor had a vast area, their field of vision became increasingly limited. Because of that, Xenon asked Ulza to remain vigilant. Ulza nodded. She even swung her club while commenting that if she found one monster, she would immediately slaughter it. Right after saying that, one monster entered her sight. She immediately ran toward it like a primitive hunter. Seeing that, Xenon couldn't do anything and just let her. After dealing with the monster, not long after, a scream echoed across the floor, immediately making the two of them turn toward the source of the sound. Following the sound coming from a narrowing corridor, the sound of fast footsteps and ragged breathing grew closer. And from there, 3 students who had previously recruited Aerith emerged, running around in panic while questioning the appearance of the monster there. When they all crossed paths, Xenon immediately called out to the 3 of them and ordered them all to stop where they were. Because he saw they had no intention of stopping, Xenon immediately used his magic to halt them. Shadow Bind. In an instant, a black vortex sucked the 3 of them in and trapped them in a darkness-type wind vortex. Finding themselves trapped made the students even more panicked. But when they saw Xenon was there, they became even more panicked and instead asked as if shocked by his presence. Xenon didn't answer and asked back at them, "Why are you running? And where is Aerith right now?" In a panicked tone, they all answered one by one. The 3 of them had entered the dungeon only to gather items and materials they needed. They never knew that such a powerful monster would appear there, and they also didn't mean to leave her there. With their excuse-seeking words, Xenon immediately understood that the students had encountered an unexpected monster and left Aerith there. Xenon clicked his tongue in annoyance and immediately invited Ulza to quickly go after Aerith. Ulza followed him enthusiastically, remembering there would be another fight. On the other hand, Xenon truly left the students trapped in his skill. The students briefly asked Xenon to cancel his magic, but Xenon refused on the grounds that it wasn't his business. He didn't care about the fate of the 3 students, considering he and Ulza had cleared the monsters on every floor on their way here. Besides, the reason he didn't care about them was because of their actions in daring to leave Aerith alone there and prioritizing their own lives. When the dungeon corridor reached another room, the light from that room was so contrasting that it blinded Xenon's eyes for a moment when he entered. When his vision returned to normal, he was extremely shocked to see the monster figure there. A giant mithril monster in humanoid form was attacking Aerith relentlessly. On the other side, Aerith, who was a healer, could only hold on using her protective magic. It was clear she was trying hard to withstand every heavy attack. Xenon himself was confused by the monster's presence in this place, and unfortunately, of all monsters, this one had appeared. Xenon then shot his darkness magic at the monster and successfully drew its attention to them. After its attention was on them, Xenon immediately gave Ulza the order to keep distracting it and buy him time. He also warned her not to overdo it and to focus only on dodging. Ulza immediately charged forward upon receiving the order and began luring its attention elsewhere. On the other side, Xenon quickly approached the limp and pale-faced Aerith. However, when she saw Xenon's figure, she immediately returned to her protective nature. She even asked Xenon to leave immediately because she was sure Xenon wouldn't be able to defeat the monster. Hearing that made Xenon sigh. He was somewhat disappointed with Aerith's response, which really hadn't changed from the game. He understood that Aerith was a woman with a very strong sacrificial spirit. She believed her existence was for sacrificing herself for others. Because of that mindset, every time she saw someone in trouble, she would try to help them even if it meant sacrificing her own life. Aerith's breathing became heavy and slow. She even lost her balance for a moment. Fortunately, Xenon immediately caught her. The fact that she was willing to sacrifice herself to give the 3 previous students a chance to escape made Xenon disgusted. Even in her weakened state, Aerith still asked Xenon to leave immediately. She even begged him not to worry about her because if this continued, Xenon and Ulza would end up dying here. Instead of obeying, Xenon felt irritated. He even commented that Aerith could say such nonsense. Without hesitation, Xenon reached into his pocket and forced Aerith to drink his recovery potion. Aerith didn't protest at all when forced to drink it. In fact, she thanked him. But she still asked him to leave quickly while she would buy him time to escape. The vein on Xenon's forehead appeared again. He felt Aerith's words were now very annoying to him. Because he was extremely fed up, he planned to make her hear what he was thinking right now. In a firm and angry tone, Xenon unhesitatingly called Aerith an idiot. He emphasized that he would not listen to what Aerith had just said. Hearing that made Aerith shocked, and she still tried to persuade Xenon to escape with her own logic. Xenon himself intended to make Aerith say the sentence she should say in a situation like this, which was, "Please save me." The fight grew increasingly intense between Ulza and the giant mithril monster. They were competing in intelligence. Not careful intelligence, but intelligence in battle. But in the midst of their intense fight, on the other side there was drama between Xenon and Aerith instead. Aerith still stubbornly asked Xenon to escape immediately because the 2 of them could end up dying here. She even cried and begged him not to die for someone like her. Hearing her degrade herself that far made Xenon even more irritated. He unhesitatingly commented that Aerith had gone too far in degrading herself, to the point that her life sounded completely worthless. That comment left Aerith confused about how to respond. Xenon himself already knew the reason why Aerith had such a mindset was closely related to the incident that happened to her mother. When she was still a child, she and her mother were attacked by a group of bandits. To protect her daughter, her mother used protective magic. However, her mother's protective magic would drain the user's mana over time. Even though she realized that, her mother persisted and continued using her protective magic. When the guards arrived and drove the bandits away, it was already too late. Her mother died on the spot from excessive mana depletion. Although Aerith survived the incident, the price paid was too great. Since then, Aerith began to regard the value of her own life very lowly and became someone who would throw away her own life for others. Xenon firmly said that he hated things like sacrificing for others more than anything. Someone who easily threw away their own life even though the chance to obtain their own happiness was right in front of them. He even asked her again not to look down on herself. But Aerith still refused on the grounds that as a servant of God, she had a duty to help others. Xenon's emotions exploded. He scolded her again and said that it was her way of thinking that irritated him. He also explained that because the protagonist wasn't here, he would say this in his place. Think about the people who would feel very sad if you died. He then explained his words like her 2 parents who died for Aerith. Because of that, When Aerith rejected the value of her own life, she was indirectly rejecting the people who truly loved her. That was why Xenon was so irritated and confused why she couldn't understand that. Hearing that made Aerith suddenly fall silent and put on a very guilty expression after just realizing it. Xenon also fell silent. He gave her time to reflect. Besides, he also realized that what he had just said was something that should have been said by Leon. But right now, he had no other choice but to say it directly. Especially because he had reincarnated into this world. He would not let Aerith die to save others or let the heroines be unhappy. He promised himself that he would destroy every event that made them depressed. And to achieve that, he didn't care if he became a hero or a villain. To solidify it, Xenon emphasized to Aerith again that her own life belonged to herself. There was no such thing as a life that could be thrown away in vain for the sake of others' good. Because that was nothing but the arrogance of a loser who couldn't make themselves happy and thought they could make others happy. He also emphasized that Aerith should have things she wanted to do or hobbies she could enjoy. And to be able to enjoy all that, and if Aerith didn't want to die, she just needed to say it honestly. In his view, a weak person should still act like a weak person and keep clinging to someone while crying and begging them to save her. Xenon's words made Aerith fall silent. Her body trembled. Not out of fear. Not out of hurt either. But a calm feeling she felt for the first time again after so long. Tears began to fall from the corners of her eyes. In a trembling voice, she asked Xenon whether it was really okay for someone like her, who had survived at the cost of her own mother's life. Xenon, still in the same tone, called her hard-headed and explained that asking for help was an advantage for the weak. Because Aerith was weaker than him, she should quickly bow her head and beg him to save her. Even though she didn't bow her head, Aerith's facial expression explained everything. While crying, she begged Xenon to save her from this situation. Just hearing that already made Xenon feel relieved. He sighed while smiling. But then he quickly turned his face away because he admitted he had been momentarily stunned seeing it. Even while walking away, Xenon muttered to himself that it was very difficult to look away from Aerith's beautiful face even though she was crying. His mutter was actually heard by Aerith herself, which immediately made her face blush with embarrassment. While walking, for some reason Xenon suddenly felt like something had been completed. He thought maybe it was a sign that the main problem had been resolved, similar to a congratulatory message when completing a mission in a game. Xenon then gave Aerith his mana recovery potion again. He also explained that he would defeat the giant monster, so she also had to help him and couldn't refuse. Aerith, who basically didn't want to make him fight alone, immediately accepted it. However, she also warned him about her experience fighting the monster earlier, where according to her the monster was very strong. Even when the three students attacked it together, it didn't leave any marks on its body. Hearing that, in a cold tone he asked Aerith not to compare him with those lowly students who ran away and left a woman alone. Besides, he also had a good plan for this fight. After the drama ended, Xenon finally began to focus on the giant monster problem. On the other side, Ulza, who had been dealing with the monster all this time, was starting to struggle. Not rarely she received attacks from the monster even if only scratches. Ulza's own attacks weren't very effective against the monster, making their fight very one-sided. Seeing that, Xenon wasn't too surprised when he saw Ulza's brutal strength had no effect on the monster. But instead, Xenon felt grateful that the hardness level of the mithril monster was the same as in the game. Normally, this giant mithril monster wasn't something that appeared often. In the game Danbare, there was a belief among adventurers that there was no such thing as a safe dungeon. No matter how familiar someone was with a dungeon, there was still no place that was 100% safe inside a dungeon. Unexpected situations could happen at any time as set in the game world. A very dangerous monster could appear with a probability of 0.1%, where that monster had power far beyond the dungeon's level itself. Moreover, every such monster had skills that could kill in one hit. In other words, an instant kill attack. Because of that, those types of monsters were at nightmare difficulty because they could easily slaughter the entire party. Xenon grinned, but there was a little doubt in him. Even so, he wouldn't back down. He then asked Aerith to heal Ulza, while he would start chanting his magic. Hearing that, Aerith was shocked and warned him that magic wouldn't work against the monster. Xenon's grinning smile grew wider, and in a proud tone he asked, "Who do you think you're talking to?" Drawing his sword and starting to injure his finger. He then drew out his own blood and dripped it onto the ground. He understood that this giant mithril monster was a rare species because its body surface was covered with mithril, or mithril itself had the characteristic of strong magic resistance, so magic could bounce back and couldn't give any attack impact on it. While preparing his preparations, Xenon emphasized to her to just obey and follow his instructions. Although she hesitated for a moment, Aerith began to obey. She sat cross-legged and began holding her staff in a praying position. A magic circle began to appear as she used strengthening and recovery magic simultaneously on Ulza. In an instant, the wounds on Ulza's body began to close and heal. Ulza was even surprised by it and immediately jumped back into battle. Seeing that Aerith had finally followed his directions, he then commented while continuing to draw a magic circle using his blood, that Aerith's main power lay in support and recovery magic, so he suggested she stay in the rearguard and leave defense to others. Aerith then said that even so, she didn't want to see others get hurt in front of her eyes. Xenon smiled and said that if someone got hurt, she just needed to heal them because that was the job of a healer like her. Standing at the front line to protect them was the job of the vanguard. After his magic circle was complete, Xenon muttered to himself that honestly facing a deadly creature like this was crazy, because both physical attacks and magic barely had any impact on the monster. He also realized that no matter how many times he had thought about this, it made him frustrated about how slow his skill proficiency level was increasing. Not long after, the magic circle under his feet began to shine brightly as he activated it. The magic he was about to use was actually a magic he shouldn't be able to use at his current proficiency level. The Danbare game world itself didn't have a level system, but they used a skill proficiency system. Therefore, to obtain new magic, players had to get a magic book. Then players had to learn a magic from that book and train their magic proficiency until they could finally activate the magic. Only in that way could players fully use that magic. There was an advantage to this system where even with low proficiency, as long as they had the magic book, players could learn very powerful magic. But there was still a downside. After learning it, they couldn't use it because the proficiency conditions didn't match. Even though he understood this problem, Xenon wasn't afraid. He grinned enthusiastically. He knew there were two ways to defeat this giant mithril monster. The first way was to use very strong physical power, where they had to avoid every monster attack while continuously attacking it until the monster lost. And the second way was to use magic attacks. The fact about mithril material being able to nullify magic was actually false. When the material received a magic attack that exceeded its capacity, the material would shatter and the monster would turn into a normal monster. This important information was very difficult to obtain. It was even only spread on websites intended for people brave enough to challenge this type of monster. Reaching into his pocket, he took out another potion bottle. He then drank it and immediately crushed the bottle. It turned out the potion bottle was a pay-to-win type bottle, a doping bottle. When the potion was drunk, Xenon's aura immediately surged wildly, and the magic circle under him kept multiplying. The doping bottle potion was able to temporarily increase his skill proficiency level. In other words, his skill proficiency level was now at maximum. Seeing that change made both Aerith and Ulza shocked. A darkness vortex appeared in Xenon's palm, slowly growing larger and expanding until it became a much larger vortex. Xenon immediately ordered Ulza to retreat quickly. When Ulza retreated, Xenon immediately threw his magic at the giant mithril monster. High-level magic, Abyss Gate. A high-level darkness magic that could only be used by the Demon King and Xenon himself. The darkness vortex began to strike the mithril monster's body. The monster initially still resisted, as did the darkness magic that continued to attack it repeatedly within the darkness vortex. But its toughness suddenly disappeared and the monster's scream echoed throughout the room. When the darkness vortex disappeared, the mithril material covering the monster's body was now full of holes and began to fall. One by one, those mineral chunks shattered and left its body, leaving the monster's original body, which was small and soon crumbled away. When the monster's body disappeared into dust, an item like a coin fell. Xenon caught it, and with a tired expression he sighed in relief because everything was over. Seeing her master successfully defeat the monster, Ulza very happily praised her master and immediately ran to hug him. On the other side, the exhausted Xenon immediately scolded her not to hug him so hard because his body now felt sore from the side effects of the previous potion. On the other side, Aerith, who saw Xenon's action earlier, could only fall silent with blushing cheeks. She witnessed Ulza's closeness with her master. She then muttered to herself in a surprised yet relieved tone, as if talking to her late mother, that she might have finally found the person her mother had told her about. The person who was destined, where she had to dedicate herself completely to him. On the other side, Ulza was still hugging her master spoiledly and continuously praising him, and Xenon kept trying to stop her. But when Aerith muttered that, Xenon slightly heard it and innocently asked if she was talking to him. Hearing that, Aerith immediately shook her head with blushing cheeks. It took some time for Xenon to realize that ignoring Aerith's earlier words was a fatal mistake. After that quite troublesome effort, the seemingly impossible monster was finally defeated. The coin Xenon obtained when the monster was defeated made Xenon realize that the coin was proof that its recipient had defeated a very dangerous monster. There was one other thing that interested him about the coin. If he collected those coins, he could obtain a special item. Maybe if everything remained the same as in the game, then the figure of the sorcerer from the depths of the water would appear and could exchange the coin for him. Xenon then invited Aerith and Ulza to return to the surface. The footsteps of the three of them echoed as the room was now quiet. However, when they returned to the place where the three students were held by Xenon, their voices could still be heard there. And when Xenon saw them, he was slightly surprised. He had truly forgotten about them and didn't expect they were still alive. The three of them also immediately called out to Xenon in a pleading yet still panicked tone. They begged him to immediately cancel his magic, but Xenon immediately turned his body away. He truly didn't care about their fate. He even felt annoyed because no monster had come to eat them. Because that didn't happen, he intended to leave them like that until his magic disappeared on its own. But his steps were stopped by Aerith, who called him directly by his first name and the honorific Sama, then told him that Xenon must not do that. Hearing that made Xenon stop, not because of her words, but because she had just called him with a very respectful sounding address. Although confused by that, Xenon asked her again, "Are you intending to save them? There's no point in letting people like them stay alive, you know?" Aerith answered in her typical priestess tone that the reason they left her there was because she was willing to be bait. Besides that, it didn't make sense to blame them. Realizing there would be an argument, Ulza immediately let out a long sigh while scratching her head, feeling bored. On the other side, hearing that made Xenon grit his teeth and explain again that it might look that way, but the fact was that the three of them had abandoned their own party member. Aerith walked over to him and slightly leaned her body toward Xenon. She answered again that even so, punishing the three of them was the Academy's job. Just because a student felt morally right didn't mean they had the right to enforce justice with their own hands. Besides that, in her opinion, Xenon didn't need to dirty his own hands for people like them. Therefore, she begged him to stop lowering his own reputation any further. Although her words were annoying, Xenon admitted there was truth in them. Even if they brought up this issue themselves and the rumor about him tying up his own classmates to use them as monster bait, it would spread very quickly in the academy. There was even a possibility that friends who had finally become close to him would immediately leave him. Because of that consideration, Xenon finally had no choice but to release the students. With a snap of his fingers, the wind vortex immediately disappeared, which instantly made the three of them fall to the ground. Without wasting time, the three of them immediately continued their activity. Yes, running away in panic while screaming. Seeing their pitiful condition made Xenon grin like a villain and comment that Aerith was truly a saint for giving mercy to pitiful people like those students earlier. Hearing the praise made Aerith surprised, and she dismissed his comment by saying she couldn't possibly be like a saint, because she was too bored. Ulza then opened Xenon's magic bag attached to his waist and took out another cute magic bag. She then slung it on and told her master that she felt bored, so she would go look for some enemies. Yes, she would slaughter to relieve her boredom. A muscle-brain kid indeed. Hearing that actually made Xenon feel a little relieved. He even smiled like a father while waving his hand at Ulza, who had left and allowed her. Seeing that the two of them now had private time, Aerith's cheeks blushed. She looked at Xenon seriously and in a slightly embarrassed tone commented on Xenon's previous comment that it wasn't that she wanted to save the students. She only did it for Xenon, who was her savior, and what she wanted to protect for Xenon was his pride or dignity. Hearing a sentence that sounded like a confession immediately made Xenon freeze there with a flat and confused facial expression. Ulza's club spun and directly hit the monster in front of her, as if illustrating Aerith's earlier words landing right on target. Silence enveloped Xenon and Aerith. Only the sound of Ulza's club strikes accompanied them. Who knows how many minutes passed in that silence, until Ulza had already slaughtered many monsters and her bag was full of magic stones and coins dropped by the monsters. After that long silence, Xenon instead answered flatly, as if not understanding Aerith's meaning, that he thought Aerith's response or answer earlier sounded arrogant. He even asked in a sarcastic tone, since when had she become his protector like this? Hearing that made Aerith frown in disappointment while slightly pouting. While Ulza was still busy in her own world, Xenon immediately ordered her to return and she obeyed. When she arrived near her master, Ulza proudly showed the contents of her bag full of the results of her slaughter earlier. Seeing that made Xenon also feel happy, and while smiling he praised her again and patted her head. That also made Ulza herself feel happy. But on the other side, seeing their closeness made Aerith a little interested and looked like she had gotten an idea. After Ulza returned, the three of them continued their journey to the surface. Ulza walked beside her master and kept hugging his arm spoiledly, while Aerith walked a little behind Xenon. In the midst of their calm journey, Aerith suddenly approached and pressed her body against Xenon's arm. That immediately made Xenon confused, of course. Especially when seeing her assets pressing against him made Xenon even more overwhelmed and panicked. He tried to maintain his composure and tried to refuse by asking her to stay a little away from him while they walked. Hearing that didn't make Aerith disappointed or anything. She instead calmly and slightly embarrassed gave the reason that because she was a healer, she would be in trouble if not protected in an emergency situation. That was why she felt it would be better if they weren't too far apart. Hearing that, of course, made Xenon flustered and extremely embarrassed. But what overwhelmed him wasn't just that. He could also guess that if this continued, there was a possibility the students would think he was harassing her. Because of that, he kept trying to make her keep her distance. But again, Aerith easily turned his words around by saying that wasn't it Xenon himself who told her to do as she pleased. Who knows what possessed Aerith? She began to act mischievously by winking at Xenon while saying that Xenon himself had also told her to live for herself. That was what she was doing by doing as she pleased right now. Because of his words, she asked Xenon to take responsibility for his own words. Hearing that, Xenon could only smile awkwardly. But in his heart, he was extremely panicked, confused why the situation had turned out like this. But after thinking again, he felt maybe all this happened because the relationship flags had started to be raised. Supporting facts were that Aerith until now hadn't formed a party with Leon, the future hero. So technically he wasn't stealing her, but rather the route itself. However, there was no guarantee that he would still end up on the route where he stole her. The worst part was that this relationship flag should have been for Leon, but the situation said otherwise. In the midst of that silence, Aerith then called Xenon again in a questioning tone. She then told about her late mother's last will, where before she passed away, she had said, "Find your destined person, and you must dedicate yourself completely to that person and stay by their side. That person will later become your hero." Because of that will, she was curious and asked directly whether Xenon was the hero figure meant by her late mother. Hearing that, of course, made Xenon extremely shocked, because her guess was too contrary to his own background, where he was supposed to be a villain figure who hunted the hero and led the world to destruction. Because of that, he immediately dismissed it and said it was impossible for him to be a hero. He even felt somewhat annoyed at Aerith's late mother for giving her last will so ambiguously, because that will could become a very big misunderstanding. But instead of being disappointed, Aerith instead smiled gently. She said that then Xenon might end up becoming a hero starting from now, because no matter whether he became a hero or a villain, it all depended on Xenon's own decisions. A statement that could melt anyone's heart upon hearing it. The same with Xenon, who started to feel embarrassed himself to the point of covering his own face. While covering his face in embarrassment, he commented to Aerith that she was talking nonsense. He even joked by asking when she had changed her role into a fortune teller, and he also never remembered asking her for life advice. Again, instead of giving up or being disappointed by his reaction, Aerith became even bolder in expressing her feelings. She embraced Xenon's arm and hugged it, which immediately made Xenon freeze again. With a smile and her voice as soft as an angel, Aerith said, "If you become a hero, then I will become a saint or even a guardian angel just to protect you. If you choose to end up as an ordinary man, then I will also surrender my entire life to you as an ordinary woman. You are the one I want to serve. You are the one destined for me. In sickness and in health, I will not change and promise to stay by your side." Who would have thought? Aerith suddenly said those sacred words to Xenon. Even Xenon was left speechless with a reddened face. In a state of panic, shock, embarrassment, happiness, and of course confusion, he realized that Aerith's sentence earlier had never appeared in the game at all. He tried hard to fight his own embarrassment after hearing her words, especially now that on each of his arms there was a woman hugging him. He admitted that Aerith's character development had changed too drastically to the point that he couldn't predict it. Fortunately, Ulza started acting as usual, where she began yawning and telling her master that she was sleepy. Her behavior that showed no politeness to her own master actually became the cure for the awkwardness. Xenon sighed in relief and happily started carrying Ulza on his back. The three of them continued walking out of the dungeon. Ulza slept comfortably on her master's shoulder, while Aerith walked beside him, not hugging his arm. But because she saw how comfortable Ulza was, she hugged Xenon's arm again. Xenon became awkward again and tried to refuse by telling her that he felt difficulty walking like this. But Aerith refused and said that she would help him walk, so he didn't need to worry about her. After walking for a few minutes, a light could be seen coming from the dungeon entrance at the end of the stairs. Aerith pointed toward the light and commented that this time another dungeon had been conquered by Xenon. Seeing that light was like a ray of hope in the midst of Xenon's worries all this time. He smiled and nodded in agreement with Aerith's comment. In the midst of that dramatic moment, Ulza's mutter was suddenly heard in her sleep, saying that her stomach was hungry. Hearing that made them chuckle softly. Thanks to this event, Xenon began to think that no matter about following the scenario, he still had a clear goal. He would not become a character who steals the heroines and would not let the world be destroyed. He would walk according to his own will. Therefore, he would go to various places, complete various things as he pleased. He also had Ulza by his side, had succeeded in making friends at the academy, but more importantly, he now had a new companion. One of the three main heroines, Aerith Centria. Exiting the dungeon entrance, the sky had turned blue again. The cool morning breeze seemed to welcome them who had returned safely from the dungeon. Without them realizing it, the night had passed during their fight and journey. After reincarnating as a villain character, his path had just begun from now on.